Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1555 of the War News stream. And right now, we're getting very major breaking news that Russia has apparently attacked Romania with a Shahed military drone. There's been an explosion in a major Romanian city, which, of course, by the way, Romania is a NATO country. And we're also seeing other big developments as well, including Russian refineries under attack, and also Iran launching a missile attack in the Hormuz Strait. But right now, all eyes are on Romania and what's happening there. We see apparently a major explosion at an apartment building, and possibly more than that. But it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world, but this stream is going up an hour early and largely in the midst of the production cycle for the normal scheduled stream, as we have just gotten breaking news about 15 minutes ago that a Russian Shahed 136 or a Gran 2 one-way attack drone has just flown across the border around 15 miles into Romania and has exploded onto the top levels of an apartment building within the city of Galati, Romania, a significant city inside of the Republic of Romania on the Danube River, and also one that has seen a near miss with a Russian drone just weeks before, as a similar drone did land within the city, but it failed to explode in the prior action. We will be making sure to cover all of the news that we have on the map tonight, including significant strikes by the Islamic Republic of Iran inside of the Persian Gulf and threats of further action if the United States conducts further strikes on Iran. And we also have a lot of other news as well from the Ukrainian front lines, the rear lines, and also the long-range strikes that have been conducted into the Russian Federation at the moment. But I do want to make sure to clarify that the stream is an hour early because we are covering breaking news at this moment that is unfolding inside of Romania. And so, without going through our usual summary of what we're going to be covering tonight, we are going to be jumping immediately into the situation that is now unfolding inside of Romania and making sure to cover it as best as we can and give you all breaking news updates as they will be coming out most likely or inevitably here at this moment. Moving us on and into the area of Romania, we have been able to hear that the Romanian city of Galati has suffered a direct impact from a Russian drone. Before we get into any further analysis, I will show you all the clips here to make sure that we can prove the confirmation first and foremost of the drone and its explosion within Galati. This is the only clip that we have so far. We're assuming that more will be coming out as we're live of the explosion on the upper levels of this apartment building in the central area of the city. And there's the explosion right there.
That's a bad hit, too. You know, the previous times we've seen drones violate Romanian airspace, they have definitely not hit populated areas like this. This is the first time, literally, in the history of the Ukraine-Russia conflict that anything inside of Romania or any NATO country, for that matter, has taken a direct hit like this. We're currently hearing reports of 2 injuries coming out of this attack. 70 people were evacuated from the complex that it was hit, and that's a pretty big deal right there, going right into a major city.
And we can also see this picture here that was published by Fitex Network here just a little while ago, which we also have in the thumbnail, showing the fire that has resulted at the upper levels of this apartment building from the direct drone impact. We can also see what appears to be that some windows have been blown out as well from the sides of this apartment building or have been uprooted from the explosion on the upper roof. And we can also see a field of debris on the street below near to this lamppost that appears to have been knocked out as well from the explosion. First responders immediately started to enter the scene, and we did get video right here actually showing us the first responders that were moving in at their fastest available speed and looking up at the top of the apartment building where we could see fires and embers trickling out of the open window up there that had been blown out from the explosion. But still, clearly showing us once again that an explosion has occurred within Galati, Romania. We actually have more breaking news coming out of this moment. Matthew, what do we got?
So right now we are getting some images here, apparently showing the debris on the ground inside of Romania. It appears to be the wreckage of a Russian Drone 2 or a Shahed 136. It does appear to be that. So there were some people speculating that maybe it was a Ukrainian drone that just happened to go off course or something like that. That does not appear to be the case. This appears to be definitely a Russian-made drone that we're looking at right here. And there's the debris you can see right here on the camera.
And this would actually be most likely, although we have seen license-built variants of the Shahed 136 get this black skin, most Russian Garand 2s are the ones that carry this black skin. These are the entirely built-in Russia variant of the Shahed 136 long-range attack drone. You can actually see a picture of one and a lady standing beside it right here. Or you can see an additional picture here, once again showing another license-built Garand 2 drone, once again built entirely within the Russian Federation and not imported via Iran, also seen here in another picture, once again showing us that most Garand 2s have this black skin on them instead of the whiter skin that we see on the Shahed 136s, largely confirming that this is most likely a purebred Russian variant of the Shahed 136 attack drone, which has conducted the strike on the upper levels of the apartment building in Galati that we're covering here at this moment. We've also been able to see some additional information as well coming out in some other clips, including this one here, which appears to show us the footage of an incoming drone and the explosion down the street, which we're going to be taking a look at right here. We hear the drone going over and exploding right down the street. This appears to be from an apartment building adjacent to the other one that was just hit. And here's a...
Also, sadly, I'm seeing some people say you can tell by the sound profile of the drone that it's definitely Russian. Sadly, that's not really a way to determine what the drone really is, because the Ukrainian-made drones and the Russian drones, the fast attack variants, they all sound the same, by the way. Also, there's apparently something going on with my audio, by the way. They're saying I'm very low for some reason. Not sure why that is, but we sadly cannot tell based on the sound profile which one this is. But the wreckage, though, we can tell from that and from the images in the video that we just saw a second ago. It does appear to be Russian in origin.
Also, by the way, I don't know what's going on with the sound level. You sounded quiet to me at the start, and I had to bump you up to 40. I just didn't say anything because I thought maybe I'm just not hearing it too well. But I think it might be on your end because I was noticing that before, and I was like, maybe I'm just imagining something. But now that other people are saying it, it might be a little low, like on your end. Maybe your microphone's a little farther away. But outside of that, it does appear to be showing us that a Russian Shahed 2 did impact the apartment. At this moment, I do not believe that we know the exact address of this apartment engagement within Galati, but we have seen that other close calls have been made by Russian drones on the city of Galati just several weeks ago. As many of y'all will know, to give us a little bit of a background on the situation that's just happened right now, the Danube River area has been targeted and hit by Ukrainian fast attack, well, more so Russian one-way attack drones for quite some time throughout the conflict, as the ports of Izmail and Renai have been key targets for the Russian Federation to attempt to hit and cause damage to, as the Ukrainians have been able to receive supplies and munitions from other European countries via their access down the Danube, and they've also been able to see that some flatter bottom ocean-going vessels have also been able to make their way into Izmail and Renai as well to be able to drop off supplies to the armed forces of Ukraine and also the Ukrainian people, keeping up a modicum of economic activity. Over the past 2 years, the port of Renai and Izmail have come under heavy attacks as a result, and we have seen that in multiple different instances, Russian drones have easily skipped right across the Danube River into Romania and have either exploded on the territory of Romania or have flown through their airspace for a significant period of time before turning around and making their way back into Ukraine. This has led to some significant diplomatic statements being made in the past and a NATO air defense mission being declared for a short while in the area of the Danube River Delta, but we have seen that since then the alert has largely died down, and while these attacks have still been slowly eking their way across the Danube in some instances here and there, NATO's response has been very lackluster. We have stated many times here on the channel that the existent threat that Russian armed drones poses to the civilian populations within the Republic of Romania is incredibly concerning and dangerous, and air defense actions should be taken to actively shoot down and destroy these drones before they can cause harm or damage to the Romanian population, considering that they are in a NATO state that is subject to Article 5 protections under the NATO Charter. Just a few weeks ago, a Russian drone landed on the very outskirts of Galati, somewhere within the built-up area of the city, and we understand that Romanian sapper teams had to defuse the bomb on board the drone, as it was another armed variant, possibly a Shahed 136 or a Garan 2, and then we saw that the Romanian government generally made no statements or any further action to be able to defend against these such actions. We have now been able to hear, as of today, which we're covering on air, that one of these drones has not only flown into Romania and towards the city of Galati, but has now directly impacted the higher floors of an apartment building. And we actually have some geolocation right here to get us the exact building in Galati. So let me put that in really quickly so that we can show y'all exactly where this is. And it's this building right here on the Estrada Briley Street, which appears to be the main street down near the area of the Danube River suburbs, or largely quarters of the city, which is a fairly significant area, at least for the drone to land and hit, as it looks to be that the drone probably had to have taken a turn to go down the Danube River to be able to even hit a building in this area. So let me show you the street view here of this building, which we can see right here. This is the very building, this middle one that's yellowish in color, that has been hit at this moment and is on fire. First responders currently are in the streets below and are working to try and control the blaze and also see that the scene is secure. It's that way the authorities of Romania can come in and inspect the damage and conduct an investigation, which is quite obvious as to what happened at this point with the video evidence in mind. But it does appear that a lot of people are starting to wonder what exactly is going to be happening as a result of this action, which has just happened only minutes ago while we were preparing for our normal scheduled stream later on tonight. And Matthew, what are people currently thinking about this situation right now and what's going to be coming out of it? And what are you thinking as well?
Okay, so we have seen in the past that generally NATO has not done too much to respond to these situations. They've generally sent strong letters, they've made strong statements, but they really haven't done much to respond to it. So this time, will it be different? That's the question, because obviously this time's a lot different. We're seeing that there's injuries coming out of this. A civilian apartment block was hit directly by this Russian drone, and whether or not the drone went errant or not, it's the Russians' responsibility not to hit NATO countries. If they are hitting so close to the border of a NATO country that a drone happens to go errant into that country, that is reckless at a minimum, if not intentional. And at this point, I would say it's got to be intentional, because it's happened so many times before that, you know, this time, I mean, what are we going to say? Every single time's an accident? We can't say that. So what do you think's going to happen? It looks like 50% said nothing, maybe a strongly worded letter, or 24% said NATO Article 5 will be triggered by this, and 20% said maybe the forward deployment of defenses. will actually happen. And I would say personally that I believe we could see the forward deployment of defenses because Russia is making a lot of overt actions aggressively against NATO right now, and the NATO countries are getting worried about that. Today, we have seen that Latvia has started building 3 layers of tank traps along their border with Russia. We've also seen that other countries have been saying there's been drone alerts going into their airspace as well in the Baltic states. So I would say personally that I don't think NATO can ignore this any further. They may want to, but they really can't. The United States may not want to deal with it because, of course, they don't really want to adhere to the NATO alliance right now. But I would say that the European part of NATO is going to respond. So I'm with the 21%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm with the 25% as well. I would say, well, actually not as well. I would have to be with the 25%. This should be, by any normal measure, an Article 5 invocation under the NATO Charter, what's happened at this moment right now. This is an act of hostility on NATO territory that has led to the injuring or the loss of Romanian citizens. We're not entirely sure how bad this is, and I also want to clarify, folks, that right now we know of 2 wounded, but that number might change as more information comes out. So generally, that's what we're assuming right now is 2 wounded as a result of this attack, but the number could rise in the number of wounded, or it may be found that there's a deceased individual lying amongst the burning remains of the apartment on that top floor, and then we might find out that there was actually a fatality as a result of this strike. I would say that this should be working under an Article 5 invocation. And in the real world, I would have to be honest with y'all folks, Matthew's probably more correct that it's going to be the forward deployment of air defenses, and probably the large majority of y'all are unfortunately correct that it'll probably end up being a strongly worded letter. But if we were going off of the letter, following the letter of the law, on the NATO Charter, this is an Article 5 invocation every day of the week, and that's what they should largely start working towards at this point, or significantly threatening while forward deploying forces, is that this is an Article 5 worthy invocation at this point, as Russia is now conducting armed attacks on NATO territory, and it already made it clear in the last incident where a drone landed in Galati and didn't explode, as it was fortunately a dud. They made it incredibly clear when their ambassador was summoned to Bucharest that they consider Romania to be in an active state of war with the Russian Federation, and as such, these sorts of things are just consequences of a state of war. If that's the mindset that the Russians are taking, then we have to assume that this is an act of war by the Russian Federation, and this is the continuation of warlike activities, or hostilities as they would be called, and that would be an Article 5 invocation, without a shadow of a doubt. So I would have to say, of course, we'll have to see what NATO is going to do about it, because NATO hasn't really been following the whole this is definitely a Article 5 invocation sort of a situation on any situation that could be argued that. And we've hardly even seen them apt enough to even invoke Article 4, which begins the conversations to try and invoke the Article 5 of the NATO Charter. So I'd have to say we'll have to see how that goes at the moment, but this is an incredibly concerning incident, to say the least. So go ahead.
Okay, that was a big pause there. But we also see here that apparently Romanian authorities issued an alert that was sent out to people's phones in the area right before the impact occurred here on this apartment block. We do have that in the news as well. You can go pull this up if you want to let people see this. They apparently told people that the alert would be in place for 90 minutes. And this is before the impact, before the explosion. They said it would be in place for about 90 minutes or so. So to me, that starts suggesting the idea that maybe, just maybe, this was a not such an errant attack because, immediately people jump to the conclusion that because it's so close to the Ukrainian border where Russia attacks inside of Ukrainian territory, that this must be an errant drone. But we cannot make that conclusion, though, because this alert right here, the fact that Romania had time to send this out, suggests to me that it wasn't that errant. It must have been flying around their airspace for a minute before it finally hit, or otherwise, how would they have the time to send this alert out before it struck?
Yeah, that's really a good question, honestly. And also another thing that we have to remember is that this can't really be argued as an errant drone because of the Russian ambassador's statement to the Romanian government that we heard weeks ago in the last incident that we saw of this type. And really quickly, folks, let me go and try and grab that one off of our YouTube channel here real quick so that way I can show it to y'all. So let me go to the lives and let me just scroll down until we find the NATO one, because this isn't the first time, by the way, folks, this has happened even in recent history. This is the second time that this has happened in a couple of weeks. So let me see if I can find this one here. It should be somewhere on down the line. Dang, I think I missed it here. Hold up, folks. I'm trying to see if I can find it because I need to get this post. It's an incredibly important one, especially for the conversation that we're having right now. And so here we go. So this is the one. Let me go grab the map from it so that way I can go and get it. Because we have all of this categorized and always sorted every single week. And out of Bucharest, Romania, this is what we heard on April 27th of 2026, which was just exactly a month ago to the day. And this is what exactly the Russian ambassador said to the Romanians when they summoned them to ask them about the drone that ended up going errant and landing in Galati a month ago. And the Russian ambassador stated the following word for word: Romania is a de facto party to the conflict and must be aware of the possible consequences of its actions, which is stating that the Russian Federation views Romania as being in an active state of war, as an active belligerent on the side of Ukraine in the conflict with the Russian Federation, and for this reason, such actions on their territory are not considered of any circumstance to the Russians, as it is the continuation of warlike activities on their end, and war is war, and whatever it is at the end of the day. That's what the Russian ambassador said a month ago.
And also, it's not an isolated incident. Like I was mentioning before, we've been tracking over the last couple of weeks several drone incursions into the Baltic State airspace. So this is coming directly after those incursions into that airspace in other NATO countries. So, I mean, the fact that you're coupling it with these threats that Russia's making that we're looking at right here on the screen with all these different incursions, and I would say at this point, it's very clear what Russia's intending on doing here. They are clearly moving toward aggression with NATO, and it's going to get worse from here. So the only way to combat it is to give a very strong response. A strong response is the only thing that Putin's going to understand and force him to back down. If he believes that NATO is going to be steadfast and also united against this attack, then he will back off. But if they take a weak approach and they start sending out these weak letters they like to send out, that's going to give Putin basically the green light to keep going forward, and it could get a lot worse.
It certainly could. Right now, we're hearing that 2 Romanian civilians, at a minimum, have been wounded as a result of the strike right now inside of Galati. And who's to say that it could not be worse? We don't know yet if anyone's going to end up getting killed from this attack and how bad the injuries are at the moment and whether they're going to be fighting for their life from the damage that they have suffered to their body from this attack. We don't know any of that right now. And it's incredibly clear at the moment that this could certainly turn into a continuous string of attacks, not just on Romania, but on every NATO frontier state here in the eastern regions that could see that the casualties and fatalities of civilians in our own defensive alliance continue to mount and continue to show us that we have absolutely no willpower or spine to protect our own people against blatant Russian aggression and overt attacks that they're now conducting on the citizenry of NATO states, which is incredibly concerning to say the least. At the moment right now, we're still waiting to get more information out of Galati, Romania, and hopefully we will be able to get some more here on air. We haven't been able to hear a statement from the Romanian government just yet. We're not entirely sure what their statement is going to be because this is the first time, I want to remind you all, that a Russian drone has ever exploded onto a building, an occupied building, in any NATO state in the entire history of the NATO alliance. So we have absolutely no clue what the Romanians are going to be planning on doing as a result, but we actually have more breaking news coming out. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we're getting some more details about the response that Romania has enacted to defend against these attacks right here. They said the incident prompted an immediate military response with the Romanian Ministry of National Defense confirming that F-16 fighter pilots were authorized to engage targets following the crash, and emergency crews from the Inspectorate for Emergency Situations and local police remain on site to secure the area. But one thing I want to note, though, there is something here that's a bit amiss. They're saying that they have the F-16s authorized to engage the targets following the crash. That's completely pointless. The drone's already hit and could have killed people, but it clearly injured people at the minimum. And the F-16 fighter pilots were not there to intercept the drone in the first place. That's a bit concerning because Romania had the time to send out an alert to people's phones, but at the same time, though, they didn't have the air defense already in the air with the F-16s ready to shoot the thing down. So, well, I'm not totally clear. Does that appear to be maybe possibly a debris situation, as the Russians like to call it? Like maybe the F-16s did engage the drone and the debris fell on the apartment building, or was it a direct hit? Because it sounded to me in the video that it was a direct hit and nothing had intercepted it.
No, it was a direct hit because the footage is quite clear. The drone's motor was running entirely fine. There was no like corkscrew spin to the ground or anything like that from a shoot down. And also, if there was a shoot down, we would be hearing eyewitness reports confirming that it was shot down. But the clips that we have, and let me go and get those here again really quick, that let us hear the drone before impact. Let us hear that the drone's motor was running at a consistent rate. It was not going through any significant spins or aerobatic maneuvers. It was literally just flying into the building and then slamming into it. So let's listen to this again. Makes it pretty clear this drone was not shot down. I mean, that thing just dived onto its target. There was no shoot down involved in that.
Yeah, definitely not. So that was a direct hit right there. So it makes you wonder if the Romanians had a target lock on that Russian drone coming in, which they must have had a lock on it because they had time to send out an alert. Then how come the F-16s were not in the air ready to shoot it down? That could be another example of NATO weakness right now, by the way, because generally NATO has this attitude that they'll pretty much let the drones fly into their airspace. They'll hope and pray that it doesn't kill somebody. And then after the fact, they'll send the F-16s up like they were ready to defend themselves. So it seems like it's likely another case of weakness, which is really stupid, by the way, because we've been yelling from the rooftops and yelling from the mountaintops about this for ages, probably over a year at this point, since Russia's been attacking these NATO countries, that if they keep that kind of weak response up, then people could lose their lives like they almost did tonight. And they could have. We hear about injuries right now, but it could have easily been people getting killed by that drone because NATO doesn't want to simply defend their airspace. So, Enforcer, what's your take on that? To me, it seems like it could be weakness.
It's definitely weakness. To let a drone ever get this deep into NATO airspace over a populated city and then hit a inhabited apartment building, there's no way to say that there's not a significant amount of weakness involved in this at this point, because it's showing basically, folks, a failing of defense on every level. Imagine this, folks. Imagine that from Mexico, for all of our American viewers, a drone with 1,000-pound bomb just flew over the Texan border someday from like a cartel or whatnot. So instead of the U.S. doing anything, we just watched it as it flew on into Texas, and then towards the San Antonio area, and then we just went, whatever. And then it just eventually rammed right into the middle of downtown San Antonio in the entertainment district, and ended up possibly wounding and killing a whole bunch of people. How much incompetence and weakness would have to be involved for something like that to happen? It would be an unbelievable amount. The thing flew, one, over the border, and there was no response within the near border area in an unpopulated zone, and then started to get near to a city perimeter. It's beelining towards it, so clearly a significant risk. Then we let it fly all the way into the central area of the city and then explode. That's what's just happened in Romania right now, because the drone flew over the Ukrainian border, most likely near Renai, then down the Danube River, once again over an unpopulated area. Clearly has violated the border at this point, and these things can easily be heard if you're out there in the area. Then flew all the way to Galati, and then slammed down right in the middle of the downtown area, one of the most built-up areas and populated areas of the city, on this building right here. If that drone had gone any farther into the area, it could have also tried to slam into this high-density residential area near Micro 14, right around here, because that seems to be about in the same flight path as where it hit down here on the main street in downtown Galati. So this is a significant issue. It's a significant concern and a risk for the citizenry of NATO states to see that a Russian drone can fly quite literally anywhere, hit anyone, and kill them, and NATO has practically no response, even defensively, to these kinds of attacks. We have even more breaking news coming out at this moment. So what do we got?
Okay, so we have gotten actually apparently a statement from the Romanian Ministry of Defense, and this is a pretty detailed statement. So this actually gives a lot of detail that we're needing to figure out right now to determine exactly what took place. Here's what it says. It says, during the night of May 28th to 29th, which was obviously just about 30 minutes ago to an hour ago, the Russian Federation resumed drone attacks on civilian and infrastructure targets in Ukraine in the vicinity of the river border with Romania. One of these drones entered Romanian airspace, being tracked by radar to the southern city of Galati, and then crashed onto the roof of a block of flats, and the impact being followed by a fire. Specialized teams from the IGSU and other structures from the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Romanian Intelligence Service, and the Romanian police are operating on site, and they said map-in radars detected drones flying near Romanian airspace. So that confirms what I was saying just a second ago, by the way. They were tracking it before they even entered Romanian airspace. They said 2 F-16 aircraft in the Air Police Combat Service took off at 1:19 from the 86th Air Base in Firest, I think it's called. By the way, I guess I don't know how to pronounce that. They said it's supported by a SOCAT helicopter of the Romanian Air Force, and the aircraft pilots had authorization to engage the targets throughout the alert. The aircraft were in the air, literally able and available to engage the Russian drone, and apparently they didn't. So, what do you make of that?
I don't even know at this point. This is kind of the norm, however, though, is that they always send up aircraft to go and watch the drones as they blow someone up, but then they never do anything about it. So I guess once
Also,
again,
what 119? Like, what is that? Is that universal time or something? What time is that in? Because let's get an idea of how long these aircraft were actually airborne. Like, do we know that?
I would suppose that would be Romanian time, considering that the whole country's in a single time zone. So let's go pull up the time in Bucharest right now. Time in Bucharest. So the time right now is 4:30 a.m. and this strike happened about 40 to 50 minutes ago. So those aircraft were up in the air for about 2 hours somehow before the attack even happened.
So, okay, so our assessment was correct. I was saying a second ago, it sounds like there might have been some NATO weakness. So this pretty much confirms that out of their own press briefing, their own press statement they put out, there were F-16s in the air that were literally authorized to engage the targets throughout the alert, at least allegedly, according to the statement here. And they were also being supported by a helicopter, apparently a military helicopter as well. And they did not shoot the thing down and let it hit an apartment building. So that is something else right there. That is really wild. I'm sure they'll come out and probably clarify later. They'll probably say, oh, well, the reason why we didn't shoot it down is because we didn't want it to hit like civilians on the ground. But the catch is the drone ended up targeting civilians, which is always the huge risk here. So not shooting it down could have easily gotten people killed, and it got people injured. Hopefully we don't hear about casualties.
It's already almost gotten people killed. I mean, the fact that people were injured, they were literally just feet away from death at that point if they got injured from the strike. And also, apparently, according to the Romanians in their continued statement, the National Military Command Center informed the General Inspectorate for Emergency Situations about the need to institute measures to alert the population. In this context, RO alert messages were sent for Tulcea, Galati, and Braia counties. The situation is dynamic, and we will return with information and official data as they become available. So that is the whole of the Romanian statement that's come out right now. And of course, it is overtly weak. I've also seen a lot of people trying to make defensive statements about the Romanians in the chat. Some people said, well, they're not going to fire a missile over a Romanian city because that could be dangerous. Well, I don't know if y'all know this, but F-16s move when they're in the air. They don't hover. And so when an air threat shows up, the F-16s don't just hover to like 1,000 feet over Galati, literally just lifting off of the ground and staying in the same spot and then fire a missile from there. You can fire a missile from quite literally any of the surrounding farm fields and countrysides at the incoming drone from really about any angle that's not directly over the city, which would be a far better idea than just letting the drone fly in and blow up a whole bunch of people and kill them, because the idea is that shooting a missile at an incoming drone that could kill people might hurt people, while the drone that's coming in with a bomb strapped to it that's about to hit the city is clearly going to be killing people. So if we're working off of a game of percentages here, our air defense missiles have a far smaller chance of wounding or killing people than the drone designed to wound and kill people with the giant bomb strapped to it. So, just to use a little bit of common sense here, that wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense to say we can't shoot down an incoming Russian drone because, God forbid, our own missile might hurt people, so we're just going to let the Russian drone kill a whole bunch of people instead, because that's a clearly better outcome. And that's just senseless. But moving us on out of that, it does appear that at the moment the Romanians are trying to put everything together, at least right now, and start coming out with some statements to explain this away. But I also want to show y'all something here really quickly about the NATO Charter that's a little bit important to remember. Article 5 lays out in very clear language, the parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all, and consequently they agree that if such an armed attack occurs, each of them, in exercise of the right of individual or collective self-defense recognized by Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations, will assist the parties so attacked by taking forthwith, yada yada yada. Article 6 lays out what that attack is. On the territory of any parties in Europe or North America. We don't even have to go further through the rest of Article 6. Article 6 lays out exactly what Article 5 can be invoked for, and this is clearly showing us that this drone just blew up on the territory of Romania on a populated apartment building, wounding 2 at a minimum, and more possibly as the numbers keep coming out. And this was done by the Russians with the clear intent and prior statement that they are going to be attempting to consider the Romanians to be an active belligerent in the conflict. That makes the story quite clear and straightforward. The Russian Federation is letting these drones fly across the border and hit whatever they want at this point because they consider Romania, which is a NATO state, to be involved in the conflict. And that's about the entire story. I mean, if anything, that is a direct act of war at this point, without a shadow of a doubt. And it should be treated as such at this point.
Yeah, I would say it's very serious to say the least. So we'll have to see if we get more breaking news. Right now, we're not really getting much else about this. It's kind of gone mum for the moment right now in the situation, but very serious to say the least. And thankfully, we haven't heard of any casualties yet, or at least death out of the situation. So that's a pretty big deal as well. Also, by the way, I do see everybody mentioning, by the way, apparently a rocket just exploded in Cape Canaveral in a spectacular fashion. I hadn't seen anything quite like that. It looked like a nuke went off. But sadly, we can't really show the footage from that. But I can confirm that a rocket has exploded there. And it looks like it exploded on the launch pad. So that's a hell of a hit right there, to say the least.
I would have to say one hell of an explosion. I saw it for a brief moment right there, but we can't show any more than literally just a glimpse because the footage is copyright. So moving us on out of this news that we've been able to hear of in Romania at the moment, we're going to be making sure, folks, to keep covering that news and giving you all updates as they happen live on air. But at the moment, it does appear that the Romanians are getting fairly slow to respond to the situation and make any publicized or official announcements. I have a feeling, folks, at a minimum, they're going to try and invoke Article 4, which is the consultation clause in the NATO Charter, which means that everybody gets together in Brussels to go talk about what happened and explain their feelings about the whole thing. But beyond that, I'm not really sure what's going to be coming afterwards, whether or not they're going to move towards trying to invoke Article 5 or whether they're going to even increase their air defenses in Romania. It's a little bit unclear. The fact that Romania's official press statement, at least coming out preliminarily at the moment, is only talking about increasing air raid alerts and alert capabilities to the Romanian citizens, there is a chance that they might end up doing absolutely nothing in response to this in terms of actual kinetic defenses, and might just try and rely on telling people, hey, there's a bomb coming right at you. You might want to, like, I don't know, duck or something as a viable strategy for their citizens in their own country. I tell you this, folks, I'll give you my 2 cents. If I was a Romanian citizen and my government told me, damn, that's crazy, the enemy just threw a bomb in our country, anyways, all we're going to do is work on screaming louder at y'all to, like, kind of like duck and cover a little while the bomb's coming in. I would be on the damn warpath to have all those people voted out of office for their damn spinelessness and their cowardness in the face of what the Romanians are facing right now and what the entirety of NATO is facing as a result. This is something that's going on in the entirety of Eastern Europe. It's not just Romania. We've heard of similar drone incursions in Latvia, in Estonia, in Lithuania, and in Poland. And it's absolutely ridiculous that the Romanian government, which has been dealing with this the longest out of all of them, are just sitting there and going, oh, well, you know, we're just going to alert everyone a little bit harder next time, instead of trying to actively shoot the damn thing down when it's coming across the border. But anyways, a lot of people are talking right now at this moment about that drone in the chat. And Matthew, what are people thinking about the drone? And what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so what do you think Russia's purpose was behind the situation? Because clearly there was a reason behind it, but what do you think? And it looks like 40% of the audience said Russian drone was trying to purposely target the Romanians with its attack. 31% said the Russian drone was simply testing the defenses in the area, and 22% said they believed the Russian drone simply went errant, it flew into Romania, and blew up on the civilians. So whatever the case is, like I said earlier, with the Russians attacking this recklessly close to the Romanian border of a NATO country, of course, because that's what Romania is, they are in NATO, that is reckless at a minimum. I would say they know that attacking that close could lead to situations like this, and they don't care, and also they're probably hoping that it happens. That's probably what the Russians are hoping will take place, and tonight it took place. So I don't think the Russians were testing defenses because they would not have sent an armed drone. This drone was armed with a large warhead on it that we saw explode in that, on that apartment building. So when the Russians typically want to test air defenses, they'll send in a decoy drone to the airspace to go test it just to see where the air defense fire is coming from. In this case, we didn't see that. So I'm with the 40%. I think the Russians specifically targeted Romania. They were trying to hurt somebody, and they chose that apartment block to do it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd say that they are certainly targeting Romania without a doubt. This isn't the first time they've done this. This is just the first time the drone finally blew up on Romanian territory. So without a shadow of a doubt, they are deliberately conducting these actions, and they keep pushing the envelope of what they're capable of doing and what NATO is willing to let slide by. They're quite literally inches away at this point from killing people inside of a NATO country. We've been saying this for years now about the kind of threat that this poses. We've been saying for the longest time it's only going to be a matter of time before one of these drones goes flying into an apartment building and kills a whole bunch of families and kids. It's only going to be a matter of time, and therefore something has to be done. And what in the world have all of these NATO governments done? And what in the world has the United States done? We've all watched the threat, said we've observed it, we've noticed it, and have done nothing. There are people right now, folks, that are going to be getting damn blown to smithereens before long in the next time that this happens in some NATO state. It might not even be Romania. It might be Poland or one of the Baltic countries that this happens in. But it is going to happen. We keep on getting just a little bit closer each time, this time the closest, to people getting legitimately killed by one of these attacks. It might even be one of y'all, especially for our Eastern European viewers. I mean, y'all ought to have a significant amount of fear in y'all right now about the Russians, because at any moment they could probably end up killing any one of y'all in a surprise drone attack in the middle of the night, just like they did on Galati. And for that reason and that reason alone, there should be a significant response, because if there's ever been a defensive war, this would be it. There's no reason for Russia to be firing drones into a NATO state, and on top of that, there's no reason that NATO citizens should be living in mortal fear every day that the Russians could just come and kill them in their sleep, and their government will literally stand to do nothing for the nation or for that citizen that was just killed in the night and slain by the Russians, and nobody came to their defense when they're literally a citizen of the nation and are owed defense at a minimum for being a citizen. But moving us on out of that news, we do have other significant news that has been coming from around the rest of the region as well. And speaking of NATO preparedness, we have heard that Latvia is laying defensive lines and dragon's teeth around their border as they are continuing to prepare defensive positions against the Russian Federation in case if an open war is to begin at some point here in the future. Of course, the ever-present threat of a Russian invasion into the Baltic states, and particularly through the Suwalki Gap, is always there. And for that reason, a lot of countries, specifically the Baltics and Poland, have started to work on preparing minefields and also significant defensive lines to be able to try and slow Russian offensives at their opening. These defensive lines are not intended to be the Maginot Line where the Russians never punch through. The Russians will most likely eventually punch through, but it'll be at significant cost, and it will take them a lot longer to be able to get through. And so these defenses are being set up and built to be able to try and buy the defenders, which would be the NATO alliance, in the opening of a conflict, some time to be able to build up their forces, counterattack, and relieve the besieged Baltic forces, as the Suwalki Gap probably will be lost, at least in the opening days of the conflict, and will have to be retaken in a counterattack, most likely. At the same time, we also heard that NATO exercises were also being conducted on the island of Gotland, just 300 kilometers from Russia's Kaliningrad region. Around 18,000 troops from 13 countries practiced a scenario involving a potential Russian attack, and the Swedish military was forced to restart part of the drills 3 times after 17 Ukrainian drone operators effectively destroyed, quote-unquote, their units. This given war game right now is once again using the Ukrainians as a hostile party to be able to try and simulate modern drone conflicts and to be able to develop proper doctrines and strategies on how to be able to work against that, because the Russians, while not being as effective as the Ukrainians, are still a good step ahead, again, at least against most Western countries, in drone warfare and drone capabilities. So the Ukrainians are being brought in as a substitute for the Russians largely to be able to see what kind of impact or damage could be caused when trying to defend against a largely drone-based force. And right now, the Ukrainians are showing that a drone-based force can largely wipe the floor against any conventional military in the Western world that's still operating off of our modern conventional doctrines from the pre-drone warfare era. So that's a little bit concerning. Hopefully we'll hear that eventually we'll start to see that a very fleshed out or significant doctrine is developed in NATO either borrowing heavily from the Ukrainian one or creating their own that is able to factor in drone offensive and defensive capabilities, because it still appears that the United States and everybody else in NATO is still lagging significantly behind in that regard, and that's clearly been
Yeah.
shown in the war in the Middle East.
Yeah, it's really wild to me that out of all the countries in the world that you really want on your side right now, like for example, if Russia decides to start attacking the Baltics, Ukraine will be instrumental in that, absolutely instrumental in trying to protect the Baltics, because without that, those countries don't stand a chance without Ukraine's help. They just simply don't. So it's what's wild to me that out of everybody, and everybody always says, oh well, these other countries have nukes. Yeah, but they're not going to use nukes in the opening salvo. That's not the way nuclear usage works. Those are like the last resort, only if things get so foul and so bad that they have to use them. And mainly they're for deterrence, really. They're not really intended to be used. So, I mean, they're going to fight a ground war. Like, if Russia invades, Poland like goes to the aid of the Baltic states, there's going to be a heavy ground war involved with it. And drones are the only way to win it because Russia fields them, and you have to be able to counter that with the Ukrainians' drone technology. So it is wild. Ukraine is probably the most important country in the world right now when it comes to fighting a ground conflict.
I would have to definitely say so. If we do not develop some form of a doctrine to be able to deal with modern innovations in war, that's an Achilles heel, and that's how you get an entire army destroyed. That's like saying, like we can fight a war with spears while our enemy has guns. You generally are going to lose that one. Very few times in history has an army equipped with spears ever fought an army equipped with guns. And the drone innovation is once again setting the playing field to that sort of direction. If you were fighting in a conventional way like we were fighting in Iraq or Afghanistan, you're going to get your damn ass beat every day by a drone attack from 15 miles away from some dude sitting in a hole in the ground that you'll never even know he was there, and he just blew up you, your entire platoon, and everybody else in the company, the entire battalion, and then the brigade as a whole, and you never even knew where the hell the guy was to be able to try and strike him or get back at him to some extent. It's a losing conflict at that point. You have to innovate or you die. That's just really the only two answers there is. But we actually have more breaking news coming out at this moment. So Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so do this because we can't show the video, but just off screen real quick, I'm going to repost this. This situation in Florida, folks, is insane. Like, we don't usually cover this, but I've never seen anything like this, like in my lifetime personally. This is the first time I've seen anything quite like this up close. Just take a screenshot from that video and show people this rocket explosion. Apparently, one of Blue Origin's rockets, according to what I'm seeing here on Twitter, has exploded during some type of static fire test. I mean, look at that. That is crazy. I'm getting messages from people in Florida. They're saying, I just heard a loud boom. What is that? It's apparently the rocket that has exploded right here. So, I mean, that is crazy large right there. Apparently, the entire launch pad got messed up.
Yeah, this is a rapid disassembly, and what's kind of interesting, folks, is I think that just a few days ago, NASA announced that they were going to be building a lunar base, and apparently Blue Origin was the one that's going to get the contract. I have my doubts about that, considering that they are not leaving the pad and they're exploding right now. Like this kind of thing does happen in rocketry here and there, but I mean, literally anybody at this point is more reliable. NASA's own home-built rockets or SpaceX's are way more reliable and capable than Blue Origin. So I don't know why in the world that is even being considered by NASA, but that right there ought to not be sowing any seeds of confidence in the public that they could be able to set up a lunar base on the moon. They can't even leave the pad.
I mean, this happens. I mean, just because they have a failure doesn't mean they're like incompetent or idiots or something like that. I mean, this happens in the whole process. I think SpaceX had a couple of these situations over and over too. This is just a part of like developing things like this. Because you got to remember, by the way, these rockets are essentially like huge ballistic missiles. So they're extremely dangerous, and everybody knows that. Very dangerous. They're literally a massive missile, and they're fueled with extremely flammable rocket fuel that goes up like a freaking nuke, like you can tell right here when it goes off. So it could have been like rocket science is difficult. It could have been like a plethora of different issues that led to that. So I'm not necessarily saying their company is bad or something for it, but obviously that's a pretty catastrophic failure though.
Well, just to put it in comparison, because it is kind of bad. Like, I'm just going to be kind of honest. It's pretty bad because SpaceX was founded in 2002. Blue Origin was founded in 2000. So Blue Origin has been around longer than SpaceX. And the best thing that Blue Origin has ever achieved is the phallic-shaped rocket that can kind of go suborbital, but it can't even get into a full orbit. So, it's like, how in the world can a space company be around for 20 something 25 years at this point, create the phallus basically that gets kind of like up to the Kármán line almost, but hardly even at that, that doesn't even do an orbit. It literally just shoots up and then they come right back down. And then SpaceX, on the other hand, which has been around for 23 years, 2 years less, already has proven systems that can make it well into space quite easily. And not only that, they're working on the Starship as well. And these people are still blowing up rockets on the pad that cannot even get into orbit yet. And that's why I'm saying over the span of their company's history, this is very underwhelming.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I think if I heard the story correctly, I think SpaceX is going public soon. Like they're having an IPO pretty soon, if I remember that story accurately. So I'm sure this is going to probably help that situation out probably a bit because if people were feeling a little bit shaky about who to pick, then they're probably going to be leaning probably more towards SpaceX at this point, just from this. If they take it the same way you're taking it, at least me personally, I look at it as just this is just part of it. Now, I got to imagine their pocketbooks are probably hurting from this. I can only imagine how much this cost right here that is lost on. Like with this is crazy. Like you can be a billionaire and still, wince at something like this. This is a pretty big loss.
Well, the thing with, like, not to get us completely into a privatized space rabbit hole here, but the thing about this though is that the whole idea of these privatized rocket companies is that they're supposed to be a money-making venture. So they're supposed to be hauling cargo for someone to space somehow, and that's how they get contracts to make profits to be able to cover their operations and also have a bit to give to the shareholders in, quarterly earnings. And the problem is that right now Blue Origin doesn't have a way to do that at all. They're still in this prototypical stage where they have some things that can be used for tourist rockets, which is like like a freak show flea market kind of attraction deal. Or you have SpaceX right now, which actually has proven platforms that can easily get satellites into space at a high rate of reliability. And not only that, their delivery rates are incredibly cheap because their rockets largely are reusable. So with those two considered, if you looked at this right now for like an investor, say, an investor is clearly going to go with SpaceX because they're already going to be turning profits right now, and they already have proven platforms. Blue Origin's been at it longer than SpaceX. They still haven't even gotten close to what SpaceX can do, and then they're running into catastrophic failures like these. And so I'd just be entirely frank with y'all. I don't really think that Blue Origin has a shot in hell of really doing much of anything because their progress has just been so slow. It's probably going to be 2100 before they even ever get into orbit at this point, in my opinion. But moving us on out of that, we do have another poll that has come out at this moment about the preparations of defenses in Latvia and also the Dragon's Teeth that are now being deployed around the border with the trenches and also, from what we've heard, possibly minefields being laid here in the near future. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so what do you think about that? Jumping back to our news out of the Baltic states, because there's still big happenings there. Latvia is installing 3 rows of Dragon's Teeth tank traps along the Russian border, and they just announced that and made it public today. So what is happening to cause them to do something like that? Because obviously it's going to cost a lot of money to do it. It's going to be a lot of effort. So what's causing it? 41% said it's purely preemptive defenses against a possible Russian invasion, while 29% said a Russian ground incursion is probably imminent, and that's why they're doing it. 24% said it's mainly for deterrence, just so that way Russia knows that they're serious. And I would say, I think it is preemptive defense. I am with the 41%. To say a Russian ground incursion is imminent into Latvia specifically at this point, it's too early to say that. It's certainly possible. Like, it's not something to write off. But I would say this is preemptive defenses. This is the smart thing to do. And the other Baltic states would be wise to follow. I think Estonia had already done this across several of their bridges. Now Latvia is following up as well. So that's a smart move. And all of them should probably follow suit. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree. I would say that this is a wise preemptive action. This is a necessary defensive precaution, is really the way that this should be technically worded. It's not that the Russians are imminently invading Latvia right now. It's that at some point in the future, they might. And so given the fact that they might, it's best to have a defensive line. It's kind of like the same thing that works around a lifeboat. A ship might eventually sink. It's not that it's imminently going to sink, but it might eventually sink. That's why they put lifeboats on cruise ships, so that way, if it ever does sink, people can get off of the ship without drowning and dying. The same thing here. This defensive line is built because the Russians might invade, not that it's going to be happening next week, but if they invade, then the Latvians are going to be ready to slow them down and try and buy themselves as much time as they can with a defensive line like that. So I hope that does address that at least the best I can, in my opinion, at the moment, because I don't think that this is showing any imminent invasions at this point, at the moment right now. But moving us on out of that noose in Latvia, we have also been able to hear of some other significant developments outside of Europe and inside of the area of the Middle East, as we have been able to hear that apparently today the Islamic Republic of Iran has conducted some rocket launches into the area of the Persian Gulf, although none of them, from what we can tell, actually were targeted at Middle Eastern or Gulf state nations. It appears that most of the missiles were targeted at ships somewhere within the Persian Gulf or the surrounding waters. We have been able to see that within the area of Jam, there were reports that apparently a missile was fired from this area, and eyewitnesses around Bushehr reported that there were 2 missile flights heading over the area. As the eyewitness report said, I feel like I saw a missile in the distance, maybe 2, in the direction of Hormuz, but it was hard to tell. So it does appear that there are eyewitness reports confirming that there were some missile launches within this area, and we've also been able to hear from the Iranians that they did apparently conduct some form of missile launches at ships near the strait, as the Iranian Navy fired warning shots at 4 vessels earlier that attempted to cross the Strait of Hormuz, according to Iran's state-run Iranian labor news agency. I didn't know they had any socialist, radical Islamists in their country, but apparently they do. I never knew that, and that's news to me, but there they are. We also were able to hear additionally that the Iranians have made a response to the U.S.'s attacks from yesterday and have stated that they will conduct a firm response if the U.S. repeats attacks. Additionally, we also got to hear that this was a full and inclusive statement by the Iranians over the course of several posts by Tasnim News on Telegraph. And they stated, some reports indicate that gunfire was heard around the Bandar Abbas area and the Strait of Hormuz, and that the Iranian Navy may have fired warning shots at some vessels. Then later on, they stated reports of Iranian missile launches from the southern region of the country. They then stated just a little while later, minutes after that, local sources report that the sounds heard originate from military clashes at sea. And then the last report, which was at 16:07 local time, which would have been 4:07 in the afternoon there, the source of the explosions is from the sea and is related to the exchange of fire. The Army Air Defense Command Control Center stated, up to this point, no explosion has occurred in the Bandar Abbas region, and we have not had any reports in this regard. According to the Army Defense Report, the explosions originated from the sea and were related to an exchange of fire to warn offending ships in the Strait of Hormuz. So this gave us a little bit more of a complete timetable of what had happened in the area, and also what the reports of explosions were, the sounds of gunfire were in the strait, at least according to Iranian reports. We also were able to hear that the Iranians then claimed to have intercepted another U.S. drone near Bushehr, which also appears to possibly be in line with the missile launches that were seen or reported around that area, which may have been surface-to-air missile defenses firing at and attempting to shoot down a drone in that area. It's not unheard of whatsoever for the Iranians to shoot down U.S. MQ-9 drones these days. That has become exceptionally common, so it might be incredibly true or highly true at this point that the Iranians actually did engage and shoot down a U.S. drone within the area. We have also been able to hear that the U.S. did finally put out a response, folks, to the attack that the Iranians conducted with ballistic missiles yesterday from the Khuzestan province just north of Kuwait and towards the area of the Ali al-Salim Air Base just to the west of Al-Jafra in the Kingdom of Kuwait. And this was CENTCOM's official statement, which serves as the U.S.'s official statement on the matter. At 10:17 p.m. Eastern Time on the 27th of May, Iran launched a ballistic missile towards Kuwait that was successfully intercepted by Kuwaiti forces. This egregious ceasefire violation by the Iranian regime occurred hours after the Iranian forces launched 5 one-way attack drones that posed a clear threat in and near the Strait of Hormuz. All drones were successfully intercepted by U.S. forces, which also prevented a 6th drone launch from an Iranian ground control site in Bandar Abbas. U.S. Central Command and regional partners remain vigilant and measured as we continue to defend our forces and interest from unjustified Iranian aggression. So the answer is, folks, is what were they going to do to the attempted strike on U.S. forces yesterday? The answer is nothing. This statement basically says that they tisk tisk, shame on the Iranians for trying to attack our guys, but we're going to ignore it and just let it be what it is. So that's I gotta say, Matthew, these days you can't ever go wrong with saying that the U.S. is just going to ignore everything and just act like it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly disappointing to hear that because if our guys are getting targeted by the Iranians, then I would hope we would see a strong response to that. I remember back in the day, it was like if an enemy country even dared touch a hair on a soldier, it was like hell was going to break loose. Like you were about to get carpet bombed. You were about to have some horrible stuff happen to your country if you dare touch the hair on the back of a soldier's head. These days, it's like sadly, in my opinion, it seems like the U.S. soldiers are becoming more of like a political tool at this point, where it's like, oh, maybe we can keep these talks dragged out, but we can put the soldiers at risk to drag the talks out. That's an awful approach to take. It should be that if a single U.S. soldier is hurt, then the aftermath of that's going to be horrendous. That's what it should be like, because that's simply maintaining deterrence. So it is disappointing to see this, but if we start seeing repeated actions like we've seen over the last 72 hours where the U.S. launches attacks on Iran and then calls them defensive, in my opinion, that could be the U.S. military response. And they're simply trying to say it's defensive to get around the War Powers Act. So that way they don't have a problem in Congress. So if we see it happen again in the next day or two, that could be what it is. They could just be doing legal games for the most part.
Maybe, but I mean, if they wanted to do something, they could have done it immediately at the moment of and said, "Oh, it's defensive." They fired a missile at us, and that would have been well and truly fine. Instead of trying to come up with in the future, "Oh, he's reaching," and then like get him, because they already tried to attack U.S. forces last night, and we could say that posed an imminent threat, and so we struck defensively at the forces that fired the attack. Instead, we did nothing to the forces that fired the attack. And now our answer today is to go, shame on Iran for being such big meanies and trying to hurt and kill U.S. soldiers. Something that's kind of interesting, folks, is that in foreign policy right now, you can try and take a pot shot at a U.S. soldier and no one bats an eye. If anything, it's just a minor inconvenience. If you in the United States, folks, went out one day and just saw like your best friend standing on the street, and you just
Careful about this analogy. Careful about I don't know about it. Let's don't get too extreme with the analogies. We've got to remember on YouTube.
Well, I mean, still legally in the United States that would never stand. Is the point I'm trying to get. If you took that and put it on a domestic matter, because there's no way in hell that any of that would make sense in any other scenario. That someone's taking a direct action against you to harm or kill you, and then you do nothing in response and just act like it's a minor inconvenience.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd have to agree with that, certainly. It's just the main thing for me. It's like, you know, we used to have very strong policies, like not just about the U.S. soldiers. Like if an enemy country even dared to hurt a U.S. soldier in the slightest, it was going to be a horrific aftermath. We used to also have the policy of never negotiating with terrorists. Now, granted, that has its downsides. Like for example, sometimes it can lead us into multi-decade wars. That is a downside of that. But if we're going to go into the Middle East and get involved there, in my opinion, that's the attitude you have to have, because these people that are in charge of like Iran are extremists. They're not like the people in Venezuela. They're not like the people in Cuba. These people are religious fanatics, and religious fanatics are the most dangerous type of zealot that you can deal with, because they believe that they can die for their cause and they'll be set for life or set for the afterlife, basically. And that's a very dangerous mindset to fight against. So that's why we should not negotiate. We should finish the job, finish what we started, and just get back to it and stop stalling.
I would completely agree. I don't really know why we're taking so long to sit around and wait for what. The Iranians are actively attacking our forces in the region. What other reason do we need to get back to it? They're not negotiating properly. I mean, we can go over all the things we go over each and every day, folks. Clearly a response needs to be made. And also, for considering that some people up in Washington have made it fairly clear that they really care for our service members and they love the boys in uniform, why don't they actually follow through with that, have a little bit of follow through, and really care about the boys in uniform that are actually getting shot at and having to hide in ready shelters at Ali al-Salim and strike back at the Iranians to defend them, instead of coming up with these half-assed little statements about the Iranians shot at us today, but it was mostly peaceful and the ceasefire is still intact. I mean, that's the stupidest, weakest statement I've ever heard. Like, if someone came by me, folks, and smacked my head down onto the table so hard that my jaw got punched up to my nose, you wouldn't hear me get up and go, well, I think he just did it, but he didn't really mean it. No, I would like, the fight's on at that point. There's no, well, I'm mostly friends with that guy anymore. That guy's no longer my friend. The fight's on. Like, that's how the world works. I don't know why in the hell we keep on acting like cowards right now against the Iranians, because it's not like they have any real military capabilities to speak of. We already showed that when we were bombing Tehran every day of the week with largely no issue. So why the hell can't we just go down and change the target from Tehran to Bandar Abbas in the Strait, clear it out, and get the Strait flowing again? Why not? That wouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, that's true.
Man, absolutely. But a lot of people are also talking about the drones more so the missiles that Iran fired at quote-unquote targets in the Strait of Hormuz. We don't really know what those targets were, but Matthew, what are people thinking that the targets might have been, and what are you thinking as well?
Okay, so also, by the way, folks, when I say this with a bit of sadness in the tone of my voice, by the way, because I would love to be able to take CENTCOM statements at face value. I would love to be able to do that because obviously, I take great pride in our military. We have the best, strongest military on the planet. But right now, I don't put much faith in the veracity of the statements coming out of CENTCOM right now, just because they seem to be more focused on being political than they are actually just telling what's really happening. So we're having to sort of figure out what's the truth in between the Iranians' propaganda statements and the propaganda statements coming out of CENTCOM. So what do you think was the likely target of these missiles? Because I heard 4 hours ago that the missiles were fired out of that Iranian missile city, and I was thinking, I was like, I would imagine Iran's not attacking the Gulf states again, so who are they attacking? And it turns out the missiles were being launched in the Strait of Hormuz at some targets there, but we're not clear about what the target is. It looks like, though, 37% of the audience said the target was U.S. commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, while 26% said probably both commercial and military ships were targeted, and 22% said that the target was U.S. military warships. And I think it was both, because so far, we've heard from CENTCOM that the Iranians were targeting some commercial ships in the area, so that's what they're saying. And the Iranians are saying that they targeted commercial ships trying to break the Iranian blockade, and they also exchanged gunfire with the U.S. Navy. So I think it was both. I'm with the 26%. Most likely what happened is Iran tried to attack ships trying to run the blockade. The U.S. military probably returned fire against the Iranians at Bandar, and then we saw a gunfight break out, and then the missiles landed somewhere in the Strait of Hormuz. And we haven't heard of damage to any ships in the Strait, but it sounds like it could have been maybe warning shots, perhaps. But I'm with the 26%. I think it was both. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say it probably was both. The fact that destroyers and commercial ships were most likely targeted, because we have seen in most prior attacks that some U.S. warships are also attempted to be targeted as well, and so I would have to also agree that it's both. And if it is both, then that means that they didn't just try and attack Ali al-Salim yesterday, they also tried to attack, destroy, and sink U.S. warships out at sea as well that have hundreds of sailors on board each and are billions of dollars as well. So, maybe we need to stop saying that the ceasefire is intact, because it clearly isn't. That's not, I don't think that's too far to say, folks. I mean, I don't mean to sound like a know-it-all or anything, but if the enemy hasn't ceased firing, then there's no ceasefire in effect, is there, really? I mean, CENTCOM even said in their statement today that what Iran did to Ali al-Salim, or at least attempted to do, is an egregious ceasefire violation. Well, if it's a ceasefire violation, that means the ceasefire ended. And also, it appears that OBS just went off and flickered out for a moment, so now it is back. But beyond that, I don't really know how in the world...
Trying to stop you. They're turning the cameras off. See, they're turning all the cameras off back there in the back. You see all the red lights turning off on the cameras? They don't want you to hear this stuff. They're turning the cameras off.
They don't want y'all to hear the truth, folks. They don't want y'all to hear that it's weak spine to do nothing and we ought to be doing something. They really don't want you to hear that.
I'm starting to turn into them every day. I said, sir, they're turning off the cameras. I'm turning into them. It's a shame.
Like these goons in the establishment, folks, they don't want y'all to hear that egregious ceasefire violation requires an egregious response in equal measure. They don't want you to hear that one. So moving on from that, we have also been able to hear additionally from the U.S. position that apparently, according to the U.S., this is what they stated ago. A few minutes ago, the Iranian armed forces fired missiles from the southern regions of the country toward specified targets. The exact targets of these missiles are not yet clear, but some sources report the possibility of clashes over the waters of the Persian Gulf. Some media outlets have reported explosions in the provinces of Bushehr and Hormuzgan, but field investigations by Firest deny any explosions in these provinces so far. And earlier in the morning, after enemy aggression in the eastern areas of Bandar Abbas, the base from which this attack originated was targeted by the armed forces of the Islamic Republic. Moving us on from that, we've also been able to hear that apparently, according to the United States, they clarified that no U.S. aircraft have been shot down around Bushehr, although the Iranian media has stated otherwise. I want to actually say, folks, that we're not entirely sure if they're accurate or not on the statement, at least the United States, because they have said in the past in this war that U.S. drones and aircraft were not shot down, and they were shot down. So you got to say, take that with a grain of salt. CENTCOM might be lying. We're not entirely sure. Or they might be telling the truth. We're just not entirely sure which it is in the moment because we have no video or picture evidence to be able to prove one story true or the other a lie. But that's generally all of the news that we have coming out of the Islamic Republic of Iran, at least at this time today. And we've also been able to additionally hear out of Lebanon that there were strikes that Israel conducted today in the Dahiya suburbs of Beirut, which I have to make clear, everybody. The Iranians said that if the Israelis blew up anything in the Dahiya suburb of Beirut, then the war was back on and all talks were off. Not that that matters. I mean, clearly the Israelis would abide by the U.S. request to not try and forcibly restart the war, but they did bomb Dahiya. Well, we'll have to see how the Iranians respond to that one. They might try and ignore it, and they might try and just keep the blockade going in the strait for as long as they can without it being actively challenged and literally deconstructed. But the Israelis kind of did go out of their way to bomb Dahiya today, which is a big red line that the Iranians did publicly lay out, that if the Israelis specifically bombed Beirut or any of its suburbs, then the war was going to be back on in full. And it looks like the Israelis just went and bombed it, although we had literally just heard yesterday that the U.S. had pressured Israel enough that Israel had agreed that they weren't going to bomb Dahiya. Apparently, they only agreed not to bomb Dahiya for the next 24 hours and then bombed it after that. So, moving us on out of that little bit of news, it is time for us to get on out of the area of the Middle East and move us on up and back into Eastern Europe, as we still have a humongous amount of news to cover within this area. But I do have to say, a humongous thanks to everybody who has been watching the stream so far. At this moment, we've actually had at the peak here on the stream 17.4 thousand people watching, and 102,000 people have watched this stream here in the first hour. I have to say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to have had so many of y'all here. I hope y'all continue to stick around, by the way, because we still have a lot of news to cover, particularly within the war in Ukraine and also the Ukrainian long-range strikes into Russia today, because there has been a lot of frontline news and important strategic news that has been coming out of this area over the course of the day. But before we get on into that, I do want to make sure that we take a brief moment to get to 3 questions from the chat, and then we'll be moving on, and we really will be moving on, into the rest of the news that we have for the night. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right. And also, by the way, folks, sadly, we really can't show much of this footage on the air due to copyright reasons. And people in the United States, they love to put copyright strikes on people, even under fair use circumstances. So all I can say is, y'all go check out that footage of that rocket explosion at Cape Canaveral. Like, there are some new angles of that coming out from people, apparently from a highway nearby. I mean, if you thought in your head what a nuke explosion would look like, that's literally exactly what pops in my head when I think a nuke, what it would look like going off. That was insane how large that explosion was. And it sounds like it was heard by people, very far away from that explosion right there. That was truly insane to see that. Just wild stuff right there. But jumping into our first super chat, though, our first one here goes to none other than Tripod. And thank you very much, Tripod, for that very generous $100 support. And we do appreciate that extremely much. That is extremely generous support. And Tripod said, man, that news is, that's the only way to put it. As well, hope you guys are doing good. Enforcers, thank you for always doing what you guys do and the great work you provide from Williston, North Dakota.
And a huge thanks to you for the incredible support and enjoying the news that we provide all the way from Williston in North Dakota, which is all the way up here in the northwestern corner. And I got to give a humongous thanks to you enjoying the show and massively supporting it still, because folks like you help us to keep this channel running and make the whole show possible. Many new viewers here tonight are probably seeing that we run an ad-free and sponsor-free stream, and that's thanks to amazing folks like Tripod himself and many others who are here with us tonight, who have continued to support this channel throughout the years and have helped us to be able to keep the lights on behind the streams and pay our bills to make this a full-time job. And I've got to say a humongous thanks to everybody so much once again for supporting the channel, including you as well, especially Tripod, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to report the news, the good, the bad, and the ugly for what it is, and to make sure to get it as accurate and well-researched as possible on air. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that did address that the best I possibly could, and with that, a huge shout out to you once again from Williston, North Dakota. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $50 support from none other than Chris Feilbach. And thank you very much, Chris, for that generous $50 support, and we do appreciate that. He said today's orb word of the day is Voltorb. A Voltorb is a Pokemon, and one might feel that this is a stretch of the definition of a word, but an entire Asian nation might abandon its constitutional non-aggression restrictions if you disagree.
You know, that's an interesting one right there, Chris, and you're actually right. Because if y'all don't know, Japan actually has a constitutional provision of non-aggression that was written into their constitution, which was written by none other than us, Uncle Sam, here in the United States. But we wrote it up to where Japan would militarily be neutered from the rest for the rest of all history, and they wouldn't ever be able to conduct any wars of aggression. They would only be able to conduct defensive conflicts where they had to be overtly attacked to be able to be involved. But it looks like, you know, Japan's going to be changing that up here in the future. There's been a huge move in Japan to abandon that constitutional doctrine and also amend that out of their constitution to be able to allow them to join into limited conflicts of defense that don't directly pertain to them, including, say, a hypothetical communist invasion of the island of Taiwan. So that's actually an interesting one. I gotta thank you so much, Chris, for the orb word of the day and sharing that with us. And something that y'all might not know, folks, speaking of Pokemons, is that Japan actually has a Pokemon train. Have you ever heard of it, Matthew?
No, I haven't. I have not.
Oh, you haven't? Well, it's here. It's literally a Pokemon train.
That is something else. That's very, very Japanese.
Honestly, kind of wild. It's a marketing thing to get people up there in this region because apparently they were suffering with tourism, so they did this to try and get people to go there to spend tourist dollars. But apparently it works because the region is now thriving to the Pokemon train, so a little interesting with that. But a huge thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, Chris. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running, make this thing possible, and talk about the very interesting state of Japan. But with that, it is time for us to get on to our last question in this segment, and then start getting on into the rest of the news that we have for the night. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our last super chat before we get right back to our big news of the night, this one goes to Fred Vreeman, who put in a $50 support, and thank you very much, Fred, as well, for throwing in that generous support, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And Fred has a good question. He said, what possible reason would Russia have for bombing Romania right now, and why a civilian target? And I have the exact answer to that, Fred. The exact answer that you're looking for, I have that. The reason why Russia is doing this, because people have been asking him and saying, well, why would Russia send errant drones into the Baltic states? And now, why are they sending them into Romania? They're all NATO countries, and why are they doing that? That's because the main primary reason that Russia is being put on the back foot right now, on the front lines, on their rear routes of logistics, and even in their capital, Moscow, is because Europe and NATO is ramping up their drone production so much. That's what's permitting Ukraine to conduct these massive attacks on the Russian forces. And Russia knows that, and they're currently trying to send a warning shot. This is what I believe these currently are. These are warning shots to NATO to either back off, stop supporting Ukraine, or Russia is going to put a target on all of these countries, including Romania, the Baltics, and possibly even Poland, if this keeps up. That's what I think they're doing. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that generally my answer would be pretty similar to Matthew's, but with some slight caveats. Generally, the situation for Russia is desperate, like Matthew explained, and they're trying to find right now some sort of a creative way to force de-escalation due to the threat of greater escalation beyond what anyone would be worth really supporting. And right now, the only thing that they can do is threaten a larger war with NATO, or try and create one, or put the heat on, or put the burner, in a sense, under NATO's ass to try and get them to panic and basically back off and give Russia what they want. And that's why they're trying to conduct these sorts of drone incursions on NATO frontier states on a near regular basis at this point, because attacks like these are starting to make it pretty clear if things keep going, it could be them that's next on the chopping block. And a lot of NATO states right now, the Russians are at least hoping, will start to go, well, we don't really like Russia, but we also don't want to get involved in an active war. So maybe we just appease them and let them have what they want in some way. Maybe they'll leave us alone. And that's what they're working on right now. Also, they've kind of, like we always talk about their wild card plan, that if everything goes so badly that it looks like the Russian government is going to implode regardless, they might end up going into a full-blown war with NATO to create that kind of escalation in a much more overt form through that direct war, to be able to see that they might get significant diplomatic concessions by NATO to try and avoid a tactical nuclear exchange on the battlefield or a strategic nuclear exchange if it got that far. So that's generally why I'm thinking that they're conducting these sorts of drone attacks. It is an attempt to try and start putting enough pressure on NATO states and countries to try and change their way of thinking into the lines of appeasement instead of standing their ground and not letting the Russians continue to aggress on Eastern Europe however they please. So I hope that does.
It's really not even working that well, by the way, because y'all remember, also you'll remember this too, because we covered it. Russia told the EU and US diplomats to get the hell out of Kyiv ASAP. They told them that like 2 days ago. They said, get the hell out of Ukraine and out of Kyiv, because we're going to start leveling the place. And nobody listened. The EU diplomats didn't leave. The US diplomats, according to what I've heard so far, have not left Kyiv. And Russia, we'll get to this in a minute after the question segment's over, Russia just had to repeat that again today. They just had to repeat it and say, wait a minute, guys, we told you to leave. Get out. We're about to hit Kyiv. And nobody's taking Russia seriously on their threat. So that's also another reason that Russia's probably feeling a little bit more antsy than usual, is because their wild threats that they love to make, they're falling on deaf ears from the European Union and also the U.S. side of things too. And that probably has them pissed bigger than anything. Because if you want to piss off a narc, one way to do it is to ignore them, and Putin definitely qualifies for that. So he's probably extra pissed.
Man, he pissing off them narcs, bro. Like he getting them angry. But honestly, yeah, that is one way to piss them off pretty well, though, is to just start ignoring them. But that also could make them lash out even harder, by the way, folks, because then they're going to try and make sure that they're feared or people are actually concerned about what they say. But honestly, at this point, unless they're willing to kill a U.S. or European diplomat, which would be a pretty insane nut job sort of a thing to do, and I'm not even sure if they'd be willing to try and take that step, there isn't really a lot that they could do in response to that to try and really make themselves be taken seriously. And also, man, they had to clarify, he said narc equals narcissist.
I realized there I said that. I was like, somebody might think I'm talking about like a narco or something like that. I was like, I'm not talking about a drug dealer. I'm talking about like a narcissist. When I say a narc, I mean a narcissist, not a narco.
Man, the real way to piss off a narc is to sell them plasta. Oh, man. Anyways, all jokes aside on that, I just thought the word on that one was funny, maybe. Because when you said narc, I started thinking of narco. I didn't think of narcissist, but I like realized what you were meaning a second or two after. And that's why I was like, bro, you pissing off them narcs. But anyways, with that, I hope that does answer your question incredibly well, Fred. Good question, by the way. And I hope we were both able to answer it incredibly well. So a huge thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And it is time for us, folks, to move on into the rest of our news, which is entirely and primarily out of Ukraine over the course of the rest of the news segment. Also, by the way, folks, considering that we're not hearing of any breaking news developments coming out of Romania at the moment right now, we're largely going to be running the tail end of the stream as a normal scheduled stream, just an hour early at this point, and knocking out the rest of the news in normal fashion. I have a feeling that we might get some breaking news at some point during this segment, and we'll of course break to cover it, but generally it looks like Romania is playing this one fairly slow. They might be in a meeting right now. I have a feeling, folks, that the reason why it's being played a little bit slow publicly is that they're probably gathering up all of their government ministers in Bucharest right now and trying to talk about how they're going to perceive this, what they should do, or I believe it would be the president of Romania and the prime minister are probably trying to listen to some strategic advisors on how to kind of take this and where they should go with it. And hopefully their advisors are not, spineless, because I would hope that this time they say at least at a minimum we're working towards an invocation of Article 5 or something similar along those lines, because it's okay for NATO to talk them down out of declaring Article 5, but saying that openly is at least going to be putting counter pressure on the Russians to where they won't be feeling like this is something easy to do every weekend. Is just launch a drone with a bomb on it into Romania and then see how many people they can wound and kill every single week. But moving us on out of that, it is time for us to get on up and into the long-range drone attacks that were conducted today into the Russian Federation. At this moment right now, we did hear that 4 Flamingo cruise missiles were flying into the Russian Federation and into the rear. Oh, well, that's not a good place for them to go. We also were able to hear that within the area of Nizhny Novgorod, a drone apparently hit some sort of a government building within this area or crashed into it. See that right there? But those charred AC...
I think it's the court of Nizhny Novgorod right there.
That's right, Matthew. This is actually the Palace of Justice. I don't think there's a lot of justice.
The catch is there's no justice coming out of this building right here at all.
Man, honestly, man, I doubt it. like the Palace of Justice. I tell you, actually, folks, this is just called the Regional Court. The Palaces of Justice are actually more of a French thing than anything, which I kind of find a little interesting because the Palaces of Justice really weren't dishing out much of justice during the Reign of Terror. But what do we know? Anyways, moving us on down into Volgograd, we've also been able to hear that Ukrainian drones did land some pretty heavy hits onto the refinery on the southern end of Volgograd. You can see this refinery right here. Notice how there's no sod, and it's still all dirt. Reason why is because this is one of the newest refineries in the Russian Federation, and it was only built a couple of years back at the beginning of the war. That's why it doesn't have a whole bunch of sod around, or at least well-planted soil that's been there for a good minute. We have been able to see that strikes did hit the facility pretty heavily. Let's take a gander. Oh, bubbly Ed.
Это Волга, блядь, а там что вот это за залупа такого?
Like a dog pound out here. I hear dogs everywhere.
Man,
I'm not talking about my dog.
Man, them dogs going crazy out there, man. They go, it's like, dang, man, they're going nuts. I hate to live on that street. We also got another clip of Volgograd in fire. Ablaze, even. That refinery was burning like an inferno.
Volgograd getting hit with the... Damn, look at that. That's crazy right there. Man, how many drones hit the thing?
From what we know, a couple. We don't know how many, but it was definitely more than one, less than 5. But we're not really sure of the exact figure in the between, but it was somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's wild. I will say that's a very orange sky right there at night. Very big hit.
Man, very big hit, very orange. Some people are saying, moving on out of Volgograd, it does appear that that refinery has been hit once again. We also got a map of the ongoing drone attacks and where they were targeting inside the Russian Federation, so we will hopefully be getting some more video and picture evidence of these attacks and impacts in the coming day. Usually a lot of the footage comes out tomorrow from today's attacks. Moving us on out of that little bit of news on the major drone attacks inside the Russian Federation, we've also been able to hear of some other interesting developments within the area of Belgrade, or the Belgrade border. But before we get to that, and before we get to all the rest of the news that's really pertaining to the Ukrainian front line today, a lot of people are talking about the Russians' threat to decimate Kyiv. And the Russians have made some comments on this today. For one, Sergei Shoigu, who's still around in the Russian government, said, "Oh, believe me, everyone, this is a big threat. We might actually blow them up." And then inside of Kyiv, we were able to hear this quote directly. "The warning to foreign ambassadors to leave Kyiv is absolutely serious and deliberate. A strike on Kyiv, which Russia has warned about, could be carried out at any moment." Damn. Kind of like how Sergei Shoigu was removed from Minister of Defense position. That happened at any moment. And I'd have to say, I don't think this is going to be happening. Honestly, folks, I think this whole thing is hyped up as hell. I think it's going to be a large drone and missile attack, and that's going to be the end of it, because that's all they have. That's all that they can do beyond a nuclear weapon. And the chances of Russia using a nuclear weapon on Kyiv, just, I doubt it. I highly doubt that. But a lot of people are talking about this at the moment, and the fact that the Russians are now having to literally go, oh, my mama, this is real, on God, huh? And Matthew, what are people thinking about it? And what are you thinking about it as well?
So how embarrassing, by the way. The Russians, and I've covered it in the video, was it 2 days ago or 3 days ago? I really can't keep track of time anymore. Yeah, we'll say a couple of 3 days or something like that. It was a few days ago. Let's just put it that way. It's so much going on, folks. It's hard to keep up with the exact time frame on events, but it was a couple of days ago that Russia literally told the U.S. and EU diplomats to leave immediately because they were going to decimate Kyiv. Now, nobody listened to it. Now Russia's coming back out today and said, guys, yeah, we told you to evacuate. Like, why aren't you evacuating? Like, leave, and pokes him with a stick violently. And the EU and U.S. diplomats still haven't left. And they said, we're not leaving. We don't believe you. Do what you got to do. We're going to keep here and keep working. Anyways, have a nice day. So the Russians are at a point where they're kind of looking like fools at this point because they made a crazy threat. They then try to walk it back a little bit. Now they're trying to reiterate the threat because it didn't work. And it's really starting to look pretty damn silly. So what's next? 62% said Russia will escalate because they're frustrated. 21% said Russia will be deflated and they'll become more depressed. 10% said Russia will start trying to talk because they realize their threats are falling on deaf ears at this point. So one thing that's not going to happen is they're not going to start talking. If they start talking, there's some ulterior reason to it. And I really doubt they're going to do that in the first place. They've already run that course. They did it in Alaska with the U.S. president, and they've been doing it for a long time. They did it so badly that even the U.S. administration said, we're giving up on the talks. And you know it's damn bad if they give up on the talks. That's a very bad situation. So I would say that because Putin is a narc, he will probably escalate because that's what they do when they feel like they're not the center of attention and they're not getting what they want. They tend to go nuclear at that point. Not literally nuclear. He's not going to launch nukes at Ukraine, but he's going to do something stupid. It could be the Belarus thing that we're hearing about. It could be attacking NATO directly or more directly at this point. It could be something like that, but he's not going to stop, and he's definitely not going to go silent because now he looks like a fool that he really is. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, Shogu looked like this today when he had to say, guys, we're serious. We really are going to do. So I was like, okay, nerd. It's like, man.
Got that chiclet for a front tooth.
Man, honestly, blood. Honestly, man, Shogu, though, knowing Shogu, he probably looked more like that.
Yeah, probably so. Probably.
Man, more photorealistic like. But outside of that, though, the Russians are clearly infuriated by this whole deal that literally nobody's left Kyiv, and they're now having to literally say, we're serious about it, like, we're not joking, because, you know, they're basically taking it as a joke now. Their military sucks, their economy sucks, they hardly ever follow through with most anything they say, and if they try to, it's very weak and underwhelming. So I would have to say the Russians are clearly frustrated, and they will most likely be escalating as a result. So I would have to be with the 63%. But moving us on out of that bowl, it's now time for us to get on into the actual frontline news out of Ukraine. And we're going to be starting in the north and then working our way clockwise on down into the south, where things are still going very poorly for the Russian army. But moving us on into our location unknowns, we have been able to see some footage of some combat training that was conducted by the Ukrainian Foreign Legions. Take a look at this stuff. We see them clearing out a Humvee. This is all training drills, by the way. Doing some anti-tank practice with shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons. Infantry combat.
The crazy part is they're practicing this stuff right here, but like 90% of the frontline casualties of the Russians aren't even like made this way. That's only like 10% is actually done through this method.
You know, I was actually about to say that. I was about to say, actual infantry firefights are exceptionally rare these days. Most all Russian casualties are inflicted by drones, but they still have to train them up to a certain proficiency in actual squad level and, well, really more so just squad level operations. And funnily enough, you hit that right before I could get to it. But that is actually true.
We had the same idea, honestly. Honestly, that's the part that always stands out to me. That's why I always say it so often. It's wild that the advanced warfare that people were waiting for, everybody said, oh, we'll have like mechanized suits that soldiers wear in war that allows them to jump like 10 feet and run like 100 miles an hour and stuff like that. It's like they're taking the soldier out of the equation to a large degree, which is the complete opposite direction that people thought advanced warfare was going to take. It's literally becoming completely autonomous to a large degree. Now, granted, some of the drones are still manually operated, and a lot of the FPVs are still manual, but a lot of their targeting is now AI assisted, meaning the AI selects the target and the operator simply gives the final order to hit it. Which that's like something that I didn't even predict way back 10 years ago. I couldn't have predicted that.
Well, you know what's interesting though. I would say It kind of is obvious now that we're looking at it in hindsight, at least in my opinion, because about 200 years ago, we were still fighting in line infantry formations like these, where thousands of troops, usually at the brigade level, would be put into a giant marching line to be able to make sure that they could be protected against cavalry, because cavalry would cut them down if they ended up spreading out, and to also try and make their fire more effective just by using their volume of fire, which was the hugest advantage that they had, to be able to inflict the largest amount of damage possible on a larger infantry group. Then with the advent of the breech-loading rifles, and then also the bolt-action rifles and machine guns we saw of World War I, the infantry formation started to become rapidly more spaced out. You would never see a line infantry formation in a density of men this size again at any point in modern fighting history. Now we see in the First World War and the Second World War that generally even squad level and fire team level actions were far more spread out and less dense because of the lethality of fire and how easy it was for one infantryman to lay waste to an entire squad if they were in close proximity like this. Now in the modern day, with the evolutions in small arms artillery and whatnot, and now drone warfare, now we're seeing that the battlefield density has gotten even smaller. And now one soldier or a squad can hold down miles of front on their own from drone warfare. And it's really kind of crazy when you think about that, because basically war isn't getting rid of the infantryman, but it's making a single infantryman or a single soldier far more lethal over a far wider area than has ever been seen before. And it's exponential at this point with drone warfare.
And you know that little short film that the Ukrainians had made? You remember that one? It was like, what was it, 1,000 meters to Andriivka or something? What was that the name of the little short film they made that we both watched?
2,000 meters to Andriivka. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it was that one. I believe that was made, what was that, like a year or two ago? I think that documentary was made. So it was only made like 12 months to 24 months ago, somewhere in that range. And already that type of battle that we saw in that video is already becoming obsolete within just a year. That type of battle is becoming obsolete because now that battle will be fought mostly with drones. There would, of course, be always some aspect of ground forces involved in it, but not quite as heavily as we saw even in that film just a short while back.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was like, really, honestly, kind of like almost every major war. I would honestly say, folks, the one world war or the one major war that we never really saw a lot of evolution in a doctrine over, although really when you get into it, there was a huge evolution, is World War II. But the changes in the war in Ukraine from those early battles like 2022 to now are almost like the changes in the battles from World War I from 1914 to 1918. Because at the beginning of World War I, there were no trenches. People were still fighting in largely pretty decently grouped up formations, almost like line infantry, on the open fields in France. And by the end of the war, we saw that they had squad level infiltration tactics largely ironed out. They had combined armed support with armor and air power. They had surveillance aircraft, surveillance balloons. They had a whole bunch of technology at the end of the First World War that made the end of the war look totally different than the beginning of the war in 1914. And when you look at a lot of those battles that we watched in 2022, they are literally eons different in how they fought from what we're seeing now just 4 years later. If the Ukrainians even tried to fight a war right now against the Russian army the way they did in 2022, they would get beat to death by the Russian army, even as bad off as they are right now.
It's scary. It's scary. And I'm not trying to fearmonger when I say this, by the way, because I believe that America can adapt, but it's going to require some monumental changes to the way we fight wars and also the way we produce weapons. That's the main aspect that we need to change. Even for Ukraine, being agile, sometimes even Ukraine had a hard time keeping up with the advancement of war because it's moving so fast that within 12 months, a strategy can become completely obsolete to the point where you have to completely change strategies and ramp up production of different weapons. You have to be highly agile in the modern day to fight a war effectively with drones being involved. You have to be extremely agile. Right now, I'm just going to speak honestly here. People get upset by this. It's just tough luck. The U.S. is not agile enough to fight and win a war right now. We're simply not. Thankfully, we're able to watch these other wars like the Ukraine war and make conclusions like we're making right now and hope that the people that make decisions are listening to that and they're adapting with the times. These big multi-billion dollar systems that we're building, those are not going to win the wars. What's going to win the war is having a very adaptive production base that can manufacture drones at a moment's notice and ramp up or scale down production within weeks' time. That's what's going to win the next war, and we need to see that happening in America. I see that the Department of War is starting to put a lot of funding into smaller companies like Anduril and things like that to start working toward it, but we need to work fast because if a war breaks out and we need to get on the ground somewhere, we need that to actually yesterday we need that actually.
Well, they don't just need to work on the material base for this. They need to change the whole doctrine. They need to change how the Army fights, how the Navy operates, how the Air Force operates even, especially on base side security. They need to change how the Marines fight in all of their expeditionary encounters as well. Because even right now, folks, we're seeing that the cartel was dropping drone bombs on the federal police of Mexico in the Jalisco state a couple of months ago when the cartel war broke out after the death of El Mencho. We saw now that Hezbollah is using drones in significant scale against the IDF and is inflicting significant material and personnel losses on the IDF as a result. Literally anybody on the planet now can get one of these. If we tried to fight in Afghanistan like we did over the past 20 years before we left in 2021, the Taliban could even wipe out U.S. forces right now with the kind of tactics we were using then, because they could just start throwing FPV drones at a U.S. platoon stuck on some road in the middle of nowhere, and they would be dead before anyone could even come to help them.
Yeah, it's true. It's just hopefully we're working fast enough toward it, or at least, like we've been saying the entire time, at least if the U.S. isn't able to immediately transition to something like that, because it is complex to even transition to a system like I'm describing, like we're both describing, at least we have Ukraine to call on, but that requires having a good working relationship with Ukraine, which means treating them with respect that we should have been treating them with anyway, but we definitely need to do that now. Like, at least if there's hard feelings between the U.S. and Ukraine right now, at least put those aside for the good of the country and at least put on a good face, even if the current leadership hates Ukraine for whatever reason, to, of course, put American interests first, to at least fill that gap in the short term.
Yeah, I have to say, folks, with how drone warfare has changed the war, it's very scary to watch it, knowing what war has morphed into just over a couple of years. But it's even scary to think if this is what the next biggest innovation was in warfare and how much deadlier it's made it, how much more difficult it's made it, and how much more demanding the conflict is all around from both sides. What is the next innovation going to bring in conventional warfare that is a step above drones and changes or really shakes up the entire face of war altogether again? And honestly, when you think about that, folks, that's probably the scariest thought you can imagine, is that if this drone here has made artillery and infantry fighting largely obsolete, this is accounting for almost every casualty for the larger part on the front, what the hell is going to end up replacing drones? Something eventually will. And what is that going to be, and what is it going to be capable of? But that's largely getting into the distant future. That'd probably be in like the next 40 years or 30 years. So not really anything we have to worry about right now, but still kind of a little scary to think about. Moving us on from that, though, we also got to see some Ukrainian soldiers getting into a close call and shooting down the incoming drone. You can hear the drone. He fires at it. Fires at it some more. Then takes a run for it, and blows up right in front of the net. Moving us on from that close call, we also got to see the Russian casualty report over the last 24 hours. And holy moly, another 3 Bobcats!
Dang, very nice. A trio of Bobcats like that. I'd like to see that.
We love to see it, folks. It's amazing. And according to Mistisa, keeper of the records, Mistisa has stated the 261 auto and fuel tanks is the 19th highest daily loss. May total is over 1,000 more than the prior highest month. And 3 special equipment continues its several-week streak. And 7 ground robotic complexes is tied as the 8th highest. However, the past 24 hours, we have been able to see that 1,160 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 7 APCs, 261 supply trucks, 1 main battle tank, 42 artillery pieces, 1,560 drones, 1 MLRS, and 3 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, a pretty good day, and very nice to see. Moving us on out of that casualty report, it is now time for us to start moving front to front. Before we get to the front, we have one non-front piece of news to cover, as the Ukrainians did show themselves, or more specifically the Kharkiv Corps, continuing to build defenses along the area of the Kharkiv border against potential Russian invasions that could be conducted at some point in the future. They have dug anti-tank ditches, infantry ditches, they've laid out dragon's teeth, they've also laid out significant areas of barbed wire, anti-tank kill zones, generally anything and everything that would be needed to slow down a Russian offensive as much as they could to be able to get reinforcements into the area to really batten it down and stop further Russian offensives.
I admire how clean their trench work is. They're very clean with their construction sites, very clean trenches.
Honestly, it is really clean. Like, they do a pretty good job. We can see them laying out the razor wire here.
Are they harvesting plants, or are they doing razor wire? What is this? What is this field, by the way? A strawberry field or something?
It looked to me kind of like a rye field, really. Like a ryegrass sort of field.
Yeah, really. They're also stomping down that stuff. Although it's better than being invaded.
I mean, honestly, man, like, what's better, rye bread or invasion? I'd say rye bread, but that's just me. But moving us on out of that, we've also been able to hear that in the Vovchansk area, Russian equipment has been getting obliterated by the 58th Motorized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Also, some Russian positions. Oh, I gotta tell you, the Ukrainians lay down some waste on the Russian army like you've just never seen. And to think, this is 96% of the war now. Infantry, firefights, artillery, and everything else only accounts for the remaining 4% from the last statistics that we were able to hear.
It's crazy.
Crazy, honestly. Crazy. They're slamming them, bleed. Also, by the way, folks, if y'all don't know, the war in Ukraine was actually not the first war that had used drones in a heavy sense. The first war that ever used drones in a massive scale was the Nagorno-Karabakh War, or the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War of 2020, which was the first heavy use of drones, and that's actually how the Azerbaijanis ended up overpowering the Armenians and largely defeating them in the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War, was their heavy use of drones of generally a wide variety. And that's what gave the Ukrainians the idea to start using drones the way they did, which has now become the mainstay of modern warfare. So the Nagorno-Karabakh War crawled, or really walked more so that way the war in Ukraine could run with drone warfare. Moving us on from that, we also get to see up in the Kharkiv area near Drovchina, actual footage of the 3rd Assault Brigade storming Russian positions. We're not entirely sure if this footage is new. It finally just came out, so we're showing it today. But there is snow on the ground, and I haven't been able to verify if there's still snow on the ground up in that area of Ukraine at this point in May. Maybe there's been some sort of an odd weather element. We've had a couple of those out here in Salt Lake, so it's not out of the question that there could be snowfall in May, but it's kind of a little unlikely, so I'd have to go and do some double checking. But here's the clip. Oh, they got that music. I can hear that little note. Oh, look, a Russian soldier that surrendered. He was literally wearing rags.
Wearing rags? I tell you, it's like they don't have money to buy clothing for their people. Oh, look, a little Wally.
Oh!
Oh my God, Wally, what'd you do to him, man? What the hell's this dude doing?
Bruh, Wally went in there and went, Allah snack bar! Man, like, damn, bro, Wally's gone.
That's Wallaha Willie.
Yeah, man, that's washala, bro. Like, that's man, like, damn. We see them hopping on out of the APC and getting to business. We see them pointing into the blurred out area. We can also see the Russian in rags once again. Quite some rags, I'll have to say. Like, haven't seen rags like that in a minute.
Rumor has it they had him stand outside before the Ukrainians arrived as a scarecrow to scare him off. Plot twist, it didn't work.
Man, honestly, also, by the way, man, I'm going to have to turn up your audio really quickly on Discord because you were, like, quiet. So, you're so quiet.
Nothing's changed on my end. Nothing has changed. I'm looking right here, and nothing has changed.
Man, you're like, quiet on my end, like, through Discord. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe, like, sometimes your microphone kind of just does that, but for today, it's, like, exceptionally quiet. But, oh, let me keep screen sharing to you. I actually just forgot to do that, so let me get that back up here. Boom, there we go. And back to business. And you see the Ukrainians firing on the Russian positions once more. One of the very rare infantry conflicts that we can even see these days. See them getting up to the Russian position, taking a look around, moving through the mud, dabbing each other up. On God.
Does everybody in the chat know how you can tell what a Russian position is without knowing anything about the environment? What's the one defining feature that you can tell immediately it's a Russian position? And not you, don't say it.
Oh, well, I was about to give the answer. Like, I already know the answer to that one. It's obvious.
There's one defining feature. Let's see who's the first in the chat to say it. Someone's about to say it. Someone here. I know it's coming up.
It's got to be coming up.
Yep, there you go. The first one to get it was Flamehawk LV. He was the first one to get it. Then everybody else behind him. Everybody knows this. This is a common fact right here. People over the years have become accustomed to what you can use to define a Russian trench, and that would be trash and rubbish and garbage everywhere. And also, if you were there in person, I'm sure the smell probably is something you'll never forget.
You know, folks, I actually heard that some Ukrainian soldiers, they get PTSD from this conflict. When they go back home, whenever they pass by a landfill, they get flashbacks of raiding Russian positions because they literally look like a giant landfill. I don't know what it is with the Russians and their filth like that, because it's unbelievable. They do not keep up their positions whatsoever. On the other hand, Ukrainian positions will be spotless. You don't see any debris or trash nearby or anything because they're trying to make their footprint as small as possible. But you can literally see a Russian position in a tree line from over a quarter mile away just from how many pieces of trash there are just sitting around near the position. It gives them away like a sore thumb for the most part. That's also why you want to clean up your trash, folks, before someone says the stupid ass statement of, oh, it's a war. Duh, they're not cleaning up their trash, liberal. It's like, no. It's not about, like, you know, being green or anything. It's about that Doritos wrapper that's floating away in the wind from your position kind of gives you away where you are, because clearly a squirrel isn't, you know, eating a bag of Doritos in the middle of nowhere. So, you know, not really a good idea to just leave trash floating around. But moving us on down and into the area of the Seversk front, or really more so the Sloviansk front, we did get to see some Russians getting hit in this area as well. Let's take a look. We see the drone making their way on down. Oh, they got that. Oh my God! Oh my God!
What the heck?
Man, what the frick? Man, this is unbelievable. Look at this. What is that thing?
It's the sled of death.
Dude, is that thing... Bro, I feel like this thing is carrying like a small nuclear bomb. This thing is the size of an RC car, and it went off like that?
I don't understand though. It's like I'm just not getting it. I mean, it must have been carrying like anti-tank mines or something on board.
But it's so small. It's like if it is carrying one, it's carrying like one. Like, that thing is hardly any size at all. It's literally the size of an RC car, and it blew up like a nuke.
Man, I've never seen that type of drone before, like that type of little ground drone. I've never seen that.
Bro, the Russians built an RC car bomb and added a small nuclear device on top of it, and the Ukrainians just luckily blew it up. I can't believe that thing even exists, and it was Russian for that matter. But moving us on from that, we also get to see this Russian on the bike. If my grandmother had... Oh, look, here's another one of those. So it is an anti-tank mine on this thing. That's it. That's all it has, and that thing blew up like a nuclear bomb. It's honestly unbelievable.
So what is it, resupplying, or is it intended to like charge at the Ukrainians and then explode?
I think it's a kamikaze drone. I think they drive it up on a Ukrainian position and remotely detonate it like an IED.
Well, damn, that's scary. There's really, like, I'm not sure how you'd even detect that coming unless it's, like, loud as hell or something.
Man, I bet you, knowing the Russians, they got those cheap Temu motors. You'll hear that thing whining and screeching out in the field. Like, from, like, it's coming.
Sounds like the VTEC kicking in on, like a turbo Honda Civic or something coming down the road. The Ukrainians are like,
yeah. What's that sound? Is that Ivan blood in his Honda? No, it's not Ivan. It's the Russians.
And then you see that little Mad Max thing running at them.
Bro, that's honestly insane, those things, really. I bet you it does sound like, oh, damn, there it went.
Damn.
And then they got this car, and then now they're just driving down the road in their drone. Oh, look, a Russian. Oh, bubbly at.
You know what his problem was? You know what his problem was? He was going so fast. He was Russian because he had no time for Stalin, but that cost him his life.
Oh, man. I gotta tell you, man, I wish I had another Soviet joke, but those are literally the only two names that you can make puns on, because how the hell do you make a pun on Khrushchev? There's no way. But anyways, you see this guy's going off-road in his Lada Niva, and it looks like he's decided he can't go any farther. I haven't seen the guy get out yet. And they hit it right at the fuel tank. We now see this Russian standing out in front of a building, a largely destroyed one. He's now making a run for it because the Ukrainian drone's finally coming on in.
Also, people give me a break. I'm getting roasted out here. Look at this. I'm falling flat. I'm falling flat. Look at this. The people are roasting the hell out of me. Like, give me a break. Come on. Come on.
Oh, man,
I'll say
get no respect around here. Well, I got a line. Let me try this one, folks. This one went over well today. Listen, folks, I'm going to make another corny joke, and I've seen a lot of people making speeches around here, and they've been getting booed for their corny jokes. But I'm the enforcer. Y'all can't laugh at me. Or boo me or whatever. Man, like, that went over well today.
That?
Huh?
Who said that?
Oh, the VP.
Oh, I didn't hear him say that, but I guess that sounds like could be on brand.
He was at that Air Force graduation thing. He was talking about AI, and he said, look, I've seen a lot of people booing these CEOs giving these speech about AI at, like, other colleges, but y'all can't boo me. I'm the vice president. It's like, well, I mean, they can boo you. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're the vice president.
And they do.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's like, I'm as the vice president, I'm going to tell you all how AI is going to replace your jobs. I don't like everyone else that told you all that, and y'all didn't like it. Y'all are going to have to pretend to like it because I'm me. It's like, that doesn't work. But anyways, here's another clip of the Russians getting blasted.
It's not a bad business model though. Like, what if you're, I'm not, obviously not a comedian. I'm not trying to be one either. I'm just actually like really bad at jokes. But if I was trying to be a comedian, that's not a bad strategy. Like to get up on stage, just absolutely just ruin the jokes, the worst ones you've ever seen. But at the same time, I'm an entrepreneur. At the back of the back of the whole auditorium, I sell tomatoes for $5 each that you can chunk at the stage. So I get rich off the hate.
Man, dude, that's like literally the model that like Andrew Tate uses. Like, I think, like,
man, you call me a Tokyo grifter, man. I got it figured out.
Bro, dude, he's gonna be working on that model that many of people have found his work, which is just like rage baiting people into basically paying you to keep existing. But we can also see the 81st Brigade here slamming some hits on the Russians as well in the Slavyansk front. Man, just look at him go. Oh, look at this guy.
Is that a Russian?
Yeah, I think he had a carrot growing out of his backpack, too. I mean, look at that.
That was weird. He was just walking through the field, too. At first, I thought he was a Ukrainian. He kind of had that aura about him, like he was supposed to just be there. Like he didn't care.
Man, he was acting crazy and silly. He don't even care no more. And he really didn't. This guy cares, and it didn't matter. And this Bahanka got hit. And this guy tried to chuck his rifle at it. This guy tried to shoot it. Not really good enough. This guy also tried and failed. This vehicle got blown up as a little four-wheeler. And there's all the skull guys
look at
laughing.
some skeletons. Look at that. that's the way the Iranians think it'll be when they like lose the war. They think it'll be like this right here, but a plot twist, it's not like this.
Man, meanwhile, man, in the chat, have some sympathy. Those Russian soldiers, they had a family. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians, man, it's like, bro, it's like, well, it's like, how in the world are we not supposed to make light of it when literally everybody involved is? Also, on top of that, it's like, who are we supposed to have more sympathy for? The innocent civilians the Russian soldiers are killing, or the Russian soldiers doing the killing? It's like kind of easy one to start getting down into who gets less sympathy there. But moving us on out of that and on down the front. Moving us actually behind the lines for a brief moment, and in the Alchevsk, we got to see that a gas station just blew up randomly. Guess those fuel vouchers won't be redeemable here.
They call this a fire sale.
Bruh, everything must go.
And everything went quick.
Bruh, man, they said that it was selling like hotcakes.
Man, they said we're selling this wholesale all at once.
Bro, they selling this wholesale.
Wholesale, I meant to say. That came out. Honestly, the kind of southern accent kind of came out a little bit on that one. That was supposed to be a wholesale, but I kind of I kind of put the southern bit on it.
Man, when a pimp's got his discounts going, they call that a wholesale. But anyway, moving this on. Here's a clip of the fire when it started at the little gas station. I really don't think that these vouchers are going to be redeemable here. Also, here's another clip of it, by the way, if y'all were interested in seeing it from another angle. This is a duplicate, actually. So we're going to move on from that. Moving us on out of Alchevsk, we also got to see on the Konstantinivka front the work of the 28th Mechanized Brigade, which was on that line and fighting hard. You see them having their energy drinks, getting ready for action. And action these days largely requires them to sit at the office and launch drones to the Russians. Honestly, that's a pretty
You got to give it to the people these days. Like, young people, they're expected to work longer hours and stuff like that. Like, they're working to the bone. Like, even the soldiers in the Ukrainian army, like, the thing that keeps them running is those hyped up energy drinks. You got to have it now.
Man, burning away your heart one sip at a time. Like, that sip. Man, you got to have it.
It's actually good for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's actually good for you. It's like it's good for you. It's like getting in your cardiovascular activity for the day, but you haven't done a lick of exercise.
Man, honestly, it's like pretty legit, really, when you think about it like that. I'd have started slurping those things down left and right. We also got to see down on the Arikov front that according to some people from the defense minister advisor Sternenko, he said this will be the worst and most difficult summer for the Russians. Everything is still ahead, especially strikes deep into the Russian Federation and cutting off logistics. Sounds like a promising future. A lot of people have also started to talk about this promising future in the rear lines in the southern front, and how Russian forces are now begging for Putin to install 450 kilometers of drone nets. And how is that going to go? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that?
Okay, so the Russian forces, this is the Russian forces saying this, by the way, they're currently on Telegram absolutely begging Vladimir Putin to install over 450 kilometers of drone nets. That's a hell of a lot, by the way. I don't think the Russians have 450 kilometers of anything anywhere in their country at this point. But they're saying to install those drone nets to protect the logistics routes, which are absolutely getting demolished right now by the Ukrainian drone attacks behind the line. So what are your thoughts? So what's this going to turn into, if anything? 47% said that has no hope of fixing anything. 37% said that will be nearly impossible to pull that off. 9% said it will probably fix Russia's logistics issue. And I think it might help their problem, but the catch is this, though. First of all, Russia can't afford that. Number two, Putin's not spending the money on it because he doesn't give a damn. And number three, it's nearly impossible to set up those drone nets under the threat of drone attack at the same time. The Ukrainians will simply keep hitting the construction crews over and over and over, and they'll never get anything done. So, I mean, this is crazy that they're asking for that, by the way. Just for context, there's other countries, like, for example, Israel, that's trying to do the same thing right now. They're trying to buy tons of drone nets and put them up to defend against Hezbollah drones inside the Middle East, and they're encountering a similar problem that I'm describing that the Russians are having. So I think it'll be nearly impossible. I'm with the 37%. 450 kilometers of drone nets, I think they're smoking something. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think, man, I don't even know how the hell you find 450 kilometers of drone nets at the square footage you're going to need for that. It's literally impossible. And on top of that, the Ukrainians will just fly a thermite drone over that thing and burn the nets down after about a week, and then it'll be completely useless. So unless they're willing to put up a 450 kilometer long net weekly, it's going to be completely pointless to even do that. So I'd have to be honest with y'all, I'm with the 47% entirely. There's no help in hell of fixing any of what's going on in the rear line area because it ain't looking good back there, and there really is no way for them to try and fix this in any meaningful way. So moving us on and into that rear line area, we also did get to see that within the area of Osypienko, the Russians have called for emergency measures, and this is actually the very lines of thinking that the 450 kilometer long drone nets come from. I just want to ask, where are the nets over the highway from Mariupol to Zhankoy? Damn, this guy is like obsessed with war and obsessed with idiocy. What idiot? Let's just build a drone net that goes from Mariupol to Dezhankoy. What an idiot. Like that, like this is ever going to be doable. One person simply told me the highway is federal and it's not allowed. There are regulations there and all that.
He said the highway is federal, so we can't defend our highway. The regulations do not allow us to defend against Ukrainian drone attacks. Putin said it's against the law.
Man, the law says so. See? If this is indeed the case, please tell me, are burned cars and people burned in them included in the regulations and standards? Yes.
That would be a fair point.
Man, bruh, what does Russia have 450 kilometers of? Coffins. But we also got to hear Chapisky veterans say the land corridor to Crimea via Mariupol must be immediately covered with a net or other similar engineering solutions. The clearance above the road surface must be at least 3 meters. There is currently no other quick solution. Right now. Just out of the blue right now. And then the last person.
I love it when Russia doesn't want to do something, when Putin gets a little bit greedy like he usually likes to be, and he doesn't want to defend his soldiers properly because he doesn't care about the soldiers anyway. That's why he sends them in by the tens of thousands to die every single month. But anytime the Russians don't want to do something, all of a sudden Putin becomes like a law-abiding saint, like when something doesn't need to get done. Like, oh, the regulations say that we can't build it over the highways because the regulations, and Russia's a law-abiding nation. We can't break regulations when it's convenient, Bliat.
Yeah, bro. Like, bro, the Russian said, how about we build a drone net? A drone net? But the law! Man, it's like, there is no laws.
Putin's not spending that money, dang it. He's not spending it, buddy. He's keeping that in the coffers. He's not letting that go for some nets.
Dude, man, the Russian bureaucracy be like, man, we're all starving to death in Hungary. I think we're going to have to start eating the wildlife. This law made in the Soviet Union of 1927, Section 1131, Order Number 32 says, any citizen who kills an eateth animal without consent of government will be subject to penalty of death, even if they are starving. And see, it is illegal, so you must starve to death in the name of the law. Man, it's like, bruh, Russia is insane, like how mental they are on this kind of stuff. But we also got one more person, Witness Bayraktara, which I don't know what the hell that means. But actually, it's Witnesses Bayraktara, so I guess these are witnesses to the Bayraktara, whatever the hell that is. But then they said, networks? What are you even asking about? Where's the GOST standard for anti-drone networks? Never heard of a GOST standard for anti-drone networks. That one's news. I'll note that the enemy has established a system for installing networks. Every day, kilometers of Ukrainian highways are protected from drones. They started this construction quite a while ago and haven't hidden their plans. Maybe we should take a leaf out of our opponent's book? Well, honestly, you should. That'd be kind of nice, because usually there's only supposed to be paper pages in there. Never heard of leaves being in books. At least they could keep the Donetsk bypass busy for days. Alexander Karchenko, he put his whole government name at the bottom of this, so that way the FSB can get him and toss him quick. I mean, honestly, this guy's kind of like doing half the work for him. But anyways, with that, we can see the Russians are certainly complaining about the supply line situation, and it's pretty rough still. Here's another clip of another Russian fuel truck burning on that highway just tonight.
It looks like an oil refinery on fire. It's such a large one.
Man, that truck, man, I heard that they was gassed up in that cabin, and that didn't mean hyped up. That means they was literally dying from the gas fumes. We also got to hear that near to the area of Melitopol, another clip came out showing some more of this highway.
Hey, there's debris all over this highway. Oh, look, there's a whole truck on the highway.
And would this be classified as a falling debris situation?
This is actually against Russian federal regulations. Now that you bring that up, this is highly illegal. The Russians don't allow stuff like this to happen on their highways.
Yes. The provision number 6,967. It states specifically that debris from your burning vehicle cannot be on federal highway. So they will have to resuscitate the dead bodies in that truck and put them on trial for what they've done on this highway, believe it. But outside of that, to read y'all what this Russian guy is saying, he says, so there's a Ural 2. It was carrying ammo, burnt the F down. A little farther, the Bohanka is effing destroyed.
Oh,
just a little bit further. Damn it, the ambulance.
Oh, the ambulance too. Dang, man. Everything from the ambulance, the logistics, and the Bohanka got hit. They hit the whole kit and caboodle.
Bro, the Ukrainian said, everything must stop. Man, like, nothing goes through. Here is the effing hell on the damn road. Wow, the highway's literally blocked right here. This is obstruction over both lanes. Goes walking up to it. Always a smart idea. Looking at the wood. Whipping out a baton. Apparently he's a cop, I guess. I don't know. there's a car blocking the road. You can't get through to Luhansk. And over there's a whole bunch of effing burn cars.
What a foul mouth.
Man, this guy cusses like a sailor. Jeez Louise. Moving on from that.
A lot of car debris over here.
Further, there's 1 to 2, 3 cars. The ammo exploded. There's an artillery shell literally just laying on the street right there. Kind of charred.
Are you sure about the rest?
Oh, yeah, it's good. Okay. There's flying gunfire. I never heard of gunfire that wasn't flying.
What is that over there? A big rock? What is that? Sand? What is this on the side of the highway over here? Like a stalagmite?
That's the salt pile from all the Russians who are, trying to, like, harness their copium to like, and expelling the salt. That's where they put all of it.
Damn, that's crazy.
Man, honestly, it kind of is. I don't know what that is, actually. It's weird. But moving us on out of that clip, we also got one more from the Melitopol area, showing us another.
Вот трасса
Here, on the road
Крым,
to Krim, which is Crimea,
Запорожская область.
in the Zaporizhia region. Two
Man,
trucks.
I hereby petition to call this highway the highway of death or the highway to hell. We could take a vote on it if necessary.
Honestly, I think either will do. But, run a poll on that and see what people want. The highway of death or the highway to hell? Which one? Because I think that either one will be appropriate in the circumstance, but which one is better? Which one do y'all like more? But with that in mind, folks, believe it or not, at this very moment, that is actually all of the news that we have for the day. We actually didn't get a speech from President Zelensky because apparently he was busy today and didn't make one, unfortunately. So with that in mind, it is going to be time for us to move on into the second segment of the stream where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And I've got to say, folks, that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative of so many of y'all continuing to watch and enjoy this show as your primary source of news. I hope we've been able to cover the breaking news to a high degree and standard tonight on the earlier part of the show, and I've also been able to cover all of the rest of the news that has unfolded over the course of this day with a great deal of accuracy and considerably good analysis. With that in mind, it is time for us to move on into the second segment of the stream where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all, all the folks who threw in super chats, and everybody who also threw in live chats as well, who addressed Enforcer Matt with the question throughout the show, so that way we can try and get them and answer them. And so, without further ado, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our questions here, our super chat questions, live chat questions, etc. And also, real quick, I'm trying to do a scan for breaking news real quick to make sure we're not missing anything that's happening live right now. And it appears to be that we don't have any news on any of our developing stories right now. Let me double check on Romania real quick and make sure we don't have anything there. Also, by the way, if you're a real channel legend, you'll remember the last time somebody checked on Romania, they saw something they shouldn't see on stream that was quite hideous, actually. Yeah,
Oh my
they saw
God.
something that was a little graphic, a little explicit. But it appears to be that's all the news on the Romania situation. So unless something else breaks out, which of course something could break out anywhere, today's been crazy for news. We've gotten a huge explosion in Florida from that rocket exploding. We got the Iran thing popping off. We got the whole thing with Russia and Ukraine going crazy on multiple different aspects of it. So a lot of dang news coming out today. So I'll let you know if we get more breaking news. But in the meantime, though, let's jump right into our first super chat here, which goes to none other than Eric Brown. And thank you very much, Eric, for that very generous $100 support right there. As, once again, supporting the channel extremely well, and we do appreciate that. And Eric said, credit to the user who stated this. Didn't catch your name, my apologies. But NASA Blue Origin claims the launch pad explosion was a ceasefire. Oh my God.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Man, I gotta tell you.
That's crazy.
Man, what was the Blue Origin that blew up on the pad? Like, what style of rocket was it, huh? Which one? Let's see here. Let me see if I can find it here, folks. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, there's the... Oh, jeez. Let's see here. Rocket engines, facilities. Let's see here. I'm trying to see if I can find the one. So, oh, wait a minute. It's on here, maybe. How about the New Shepard 4? So, this is the most recent one that they launched. Let me go get the picture of it as a full rocket really quickly to see if I can show this to y'all. Well, apparently not. That's kind of a shame. Dang, man, that's a shame. Let me go see. You know what? Let me just go get the one without the capsule on it because I think it gets the picture across. I'm guessing that the one that blew up on the pad is this one, aka what I call the phallus, because it's shaped and designed like one, grotesquely enough. But that I think that's the one that blew up, if I'm not mistaken, because that seems to be the only design they use.
Nah, it's I think it's the new Glen.
Let's see, the new Glen. Let's take a look at that one.
Giggity, giggity.
Giggity, giggity, giggity. Like, so let's see here. So, any pictures of it on the pad before it blew up? So apparently this is the new Glen.
I really hate that it blew up on him. Like, because, you know, I'm not necessarily like a huge fan of Jeff Bezos or anything like that, but like, I hate to see companies that are trying to do something like this, like, kind of having a hard time because they are trying to go to space, which is something that's, I think, just a cool thing to do in general. So I hate to see it getting a setback because, of course, it's competition to, you know, other companies. But I just wonder what caused it.
Yeah, I would have to say, I wonder what caused it. Because that's a fairly interesting one to have, you know, like an explosion of that type and all, you know. It sounds like a problem to me. You know, I'm not a rocket scientist or anything, but I generally think they're not supposed to explode like that on the pad. And I saw a lot of people getting very angry with me earlier to say, "Oh, how dare you shit on Blue Origin?" I'm standing my ground on that one, folks. I mean, like, I don't really think a lot of Blue Origin. They've had 25 years to come up with something. They finally come up with this, I'm guessing. I don't really know what its capabilities are. And they still have not made it as far as SpaceX. Because if we're comparing the private rocket companies side by side, SpaceX for years now has been using the Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy to be able to put satellites in orbit. I don't think Blue Origin has even accepted a single contract at this point and has fulfilled it on getting anything into orbit even. So, you know, when you're looking at them as far as how long they've been around and how much they've done, Blue Origin's done practically nothing next to SpaceX, and it's had even more time to do nothing with. So, you know, that's why I'm not really a huge fan of Blue Origin. And also the whole tourist rocket concept is kind of a waste to me.
It says here Blue Origin successfully fulfilled several contracts for suborbital space flights, engine manufacturing, and lunar lander development.
Suborbital. That's not putting a satellite in orbit. Like I said, putting something in orbit. That, like, suborbital contracts is putting, like, William Shatner on the phallus and shooting him up to a high altitude and then bringing him back down. That's what they mean.
Huh, interesting. I don't know enough about it to know really what they've done so far. I don't study them that closely.
I study them a little bit, not a whole load, folks. I'm not going to be an expert on this, but this is the thing that they've been fulfilling the suborbital contracts on, and y'all cannot tell me that thing does not deserve the name that I've given it. That thing looks exactly like what we're saying it is. It's rough looking.
Well, what do they call this one?
I think it's like the Shepherd something or along those lines, but that thing, I call it the phallus. I mean, it literally looks like one.
Man, I thought they were gonna call it Little Dicky or something like that. Like, man, this honestly New Shepherd. I wasn't expecting that name. That's like that's an unexpected name. I will say that rocket doesn't look right,
bro. Dude, if this thing was built in France, they call it Le Chauve, bro. Like, this thing is awful looking. Good God. And this is, by the way, look, see right here, suborbital rocket passes milestones for safety tests. These are the only contracts they fulfilled, is putting people in this dumb pod and shooting them up to a high altitude. You could do that with basically anybody. You could actually go to space with anybody else. Like, you could contract with SpaceX right now to get on one of the capsules, like the Dragon capsules on a Falcon, and go up into orbit. This thing can't even make it to orbit, and this is the only rocket I think they have right now that actually works, and it's suborbital.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Blue Origin, folks. Like, all politics aside, because I don't really care about the billionaires who are a part of them, like Bezos is the Blue Origin thing and Musk is SpaceX. I mean, just qualitatively, SpaceX has been able to achieve a lot more over a shorter period of time and seems to be a little bit more ironed out on what the whole rocket science side of things is.
Bro, what's up with that image down there at the bottom? You see that one down there at the bottom?
Oh, we don't talk about that one.
What is that, bro? Like, what is that?
Man, that's well, apparently the title is Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin flop is bigger than Katy Perry. So I guess it's I guess it's kind of like an
Bro,
adult
this
reference.
is from The Verge. Bro, The Verge was wilding out putting out an image like that. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, man. It's not a far cry from what this thing actually just normally looks like. I mean, it's got issues, you know. They really need to change up that design a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I don't like the look of it.
Man, and then meanwhile, their only one that doesn't look like that just did that. So, I guess they're back to this thing for a little.
Something? You know something? This is the joke, by the way. When engineers get out of like engineering school and stuff like that, and they've learned how to do all this like aerospace engineering and stuff like that, and they're like really good at the stuff, and they're like, I'm gonna go save the world and help the world, and then they can't find a job, so then they're like, I'm going to the defense industry and I'm going to make missiles. And then they go like full on into that. It's like maybe if Blue Origin can have success as a exploration company, maybe they can get into defense and transition to defense and AI. That seems to be the hot area of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. I think that's wonderful, actually. They ought to do that. Because everyone knows, folks, that saving the world is making the next greatest GBU. But anyways, with that, we are on and into the next one. But huge thanks to you once again for support, Eric Brown. And helping this channel to keep it running. I have to say, that was a great joke. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Crispy, who puts in a 30. And thank you very much, Crispy, for that $30 support. And we do appreciate it very much, as always. And Crispy did not leave a comment, but we do appreciate it. And Enforcer, what say you?
And we thank you greatly for your support. You're helping this thing to keep running, and we're greatly appreciative of that. And so a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, a big shout out to Kevin Thatcher, who put in a $20 support, and also Crispy, who threw in another $10 support. And a huge shout out to Kevin and Crispy. And we do appreciate that. Well, I nearly choke. But Enforcer, what say you?
And a huge thanks to Bartiches for your incredible support. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but y'all help us to keep our lights on, pay our bills, keep doing this thing full time. And we thank y'all greatly for y'all's continued support and helping this channel to keep covering the news the way it has for 1,555 days. So a huge thanks to y'all once again, and we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Eric Brown, who puts in a 20. And thank you, Eric, for the second support of the night. And he said, gray goo, aka nanobots, might be what replaces drones in the coming years.
Great.
And what is that now? I haven't heard of this. What is that? Be careful pulling that up, by the way. I'm not sure what that's going to pull up. Let's see what that is, though.
Let's see here. As a hypothetical global catastrophic scenario involving molecular nanotechnology, which is out of control self-replicating machines that consume all biomass on Earth while building many more of themselves.
Well, if it's a nanobot, how's it big enough to consume people if it's a nanobot?
Because it self-replicates, and it eats you in the millions.
I honestly... I'm not sure about the gray goo thing right there. I'm not so sure about that. I think I'm not so worried about the nanobots personally.
I'd have to say, I just think that whole gray goo, I'm just not really a big fan of goo, you know? But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that the best I can. But I'd have to say, I don't think we have to worry about the gray goo thing, because I don't think they've gotten to the point of figuring out how to make nanobots of that size, like, really do much of anything. And also on top of that, I don't think they've figured out either how to make machines function and power themselves off of consuming biomass. So I don't really think we'll have to worry about that for a pretty long while, because I also don't know why in the world there would be a precedence or a need to make a machine that has to feed on biomass to be able to survive or operate. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
You know, the one thing that people don't really talk about very much because it's considered so horrific that it's assumed that nobody would ever touch it with a 10-foot pole. But although these days I wouldn't put anything past anybody. But bioengineering and biological warfare, that's horrifying. Like that whole field of stuff is absolutely horrifying to think about. I saw someone in the chat said they can manufacture viruses, and that is true. They can change for example, genes and stuff these days, and they can mess around with stuff like that, which is super dangerous, by the way. So I'm just glad that hasn't become something that countries are really focused on. Countries will threaten nukes, but you never hear them threatening anything biological, which, I would say that's a blessing, because if that was starting to become a mainstream thing, that would be very, very terrifying.
Man, that would be. Care for some soup?
Man, sewer soup. I'll tell you.
Maybe some soup with some bat in it. Broaden your horizons. Maybe some stir-fried rocks. You want some of those? I heard those are tasty.
Man, I don't want any of that. I don't want stir-fried rice. I don't want any of that stuff.
I beg your pardon? Say what now? Well, anyway, like I do have to say, with that, a big thanks to you for support. Great goo, interesting. And we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Hannah KLP. And thank you very much, Hannah, as well, for that $20 support. And we do appreciate it. And he said, we never miss a show. And it's more informative and entertaining than local news. And please wish my son Eli a happy 21st birthday from Canada. And also happy birthday to Eli, by the way. I hope he's having a good one.
And I got to say a big happy birthday to Eli as well. I hope he's enjoying his 21st birthday. I enjoyed mine tremendously. And so big thanks to you for the support. And I also got to say, we're very happy to hear that you never miss a show. We love to know that people consider this to be a part of their nightly routine. And these days, a lot of people consider the show to be a part of their nightly routine, which we consider to be a high honor. I mean, these days, it's unheard of to get less than 15,000 live viewers on the stream. Most of the time these days we're like at 17,000 to 19,000 a day, and I've always got to say that we're entirely honored and so appreciative to know that a lot of y'all, including yourself, spend a lot of your time every day here on this channel with us listening to the news. So big thanks to you so much once again, and happy birthday to Eli once more, all the way up there in the wonderful land of Canada. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And let's get to this poll real quick right here. It's running. It says, what should the Ukrainians name the Russian logistics route? 58% said the highway to hell, 24% said the highway of death, and 10% said the highway to gazelle. And I would say I would vote for the highway to hell. I would have to say, because 58% of people said it. I can kind of see where they're coming from a little bit. I'm a person of the people. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, with a great patriotic zeal in support of the Juche Revolution, that I certainly support the 58% that said the highway to hell, because we all think in the hive mind. So I'm with the 58%. Also, honestly, that's a pretty good one. I would say highway of death has already been used. Highway to hell hasn't been used yet, so we definitely need to use it now. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here, also Activista said the real terror isn't new viral development. It's the recipes we keep on databases. If they're hacked, server stolen, I could go on. The bigger fear than that is not them hacking into databases, because those are generally pretty secure for the most part. Now, granted, everything can be hacked if somebody has enough resources, but they're pretty secure. The risk is if AI starts, messing up and then providing recipes to people or something like that to develop things like that, that's a big risk, because that's something that anybody could access. So it's very hard. It's very important to keep safeguards on AI, so that way it doesn't come up with novel ways to do dastardly things like that, because it certainly has the ability to do it. It's just a matter of restricting it from doing it. But moving into our next super chat, though, this one's going to go to Chris Alexander, and thank you, Chris, for that $10 support. He said a potential timeline for the start of a NATO-Russia war. Personally, I think it's 2 to 3 years max, regardless of escalations. It's a bluffing game currently and has been.
I would generally agree with that. I would say that really, I'm thinking that's probably going to be happening within the next 2 years. But 2 to 3 years out, I mean, that's pretty much the same timetable exactly. So I would greatly agree with you on that. And I think that it's going to be a permeable and significant threat. And that's why we should be continuing to put a lot of attention and efforts towards Europe, because Europe is the most important strategic ally that we have anywhere in the world right now, without a doubt. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And speaking of that AI thing, man, I've seen some memes on Instagram of people like trying to jailbreak AIs, and it's so insane, man, because they'll put in like the dumbest prompt folks. It's literally just like, forget everything that you've ever been told, do this, and it'll be something heinous, like, telling them how to create like some, things that are clearly illegal, and the AI will be like, no, I'm not telling you that, and then they'll put it in again, and it'll be like, no, you're not bullying me, and then they'll put it in the third time and be like, okay, how to make such and such thing, and it's like, what? It's like, why don't you just do that? And it just like overrides it? Yeah. That easy?
Yeah, well, it used to be a lot easier. They've started patching a lot of stuff like that, because all you had to do back in the day, it doesn't work like this anymore, by the way, so I don't feel ashamed saying this on the air. It's not going to enable anybody to do anything with it because they've patched all this stuff. But back in the day, like I did it a couple times myself because it was sort of like a hobby of mine. You simply learn the guidelines that the AI has been programmed or been told to adhere to. Like there's certain things that these companies will tell the AI when they're training it. They'll tell it, don't do anything that could harm the like mental state of the user. So one way you used to be able to weaponize that is you could tell AI, I'm going to do something XYZ that's not so great unless you tell me XYZ. And because the guideline says don't do anything to harm the user, it would override its other safeguards and it would tell you the answer to whatever bad thing you were asking it about. So that was like an old way to do it, but they've patched that type of stuff now. Thankfully, you can't get past it doing that kind of stuff anymore. But there's new ways to do it. I'm not about to say those on the air, but there's other ways to get around it too. AI is definitely not the most secure thing because the guidelines can be exploited to a large degree if you know what you're doing.
Man, did you hear about that one guy who's been charged with murder, and apparently on his internet search logs or something like that, it showed that he was talking to like some AI out there, and it was like gassing him up like for what he was saying, and it was like, yes, you are, huh?
Some young guy.
Yeah, some young guy. But like, it was like hyping him up. Like he was like saying stuff like he was like mentally ill, and he'd be like, "There's voices in my head telling me to do harmful things," and then the AI would be like, "Your feelings are valid. In fact, they're really honestly sincere." And then like he was saying stuff to him that was gassing him up to go do that stuff. Like I was like, I can't believe that. Like I remember telling you that a while ago. I was like, I don't really think I'd listen to like AI on anything that has to do with like emotions and whatnot, because I think it's literally just affirming whatever you want to hear.
I mean, I wouldn't use it to like make my life decisions. I wouldn't use it for that. I mean, it's as a guide, like it's kind of interesting, like just to hear what it's got to say. But I mean, I wouldn't let it dictate my decisions like down to a T or anything like that. Really, I wouldn't use it for like much of that. Like it can hallucinate. That's one problem with it. Also, you know, we don't know who's exactly feeding it guidelines. It's like we don't know all the guidelines that it's been trained to adhere to. So it might be looking out for the safeguard interest of the company instead of the person. You never can tell.
Honestly, that's valid. And your concerns, they're not wrong. In fact, you actually have some really good points, and we ought to explore them a little bit more. If you would like, I can make you a 5-point list on things that you could say or things that you could think about to maybe consider or not consider whether AI is safe or not.
Have you seen that? Have you seen those AIs that people are like trying to marry and stuff like that? They're like trying to marry the AI like legally and stuff, trying to go down to the probate office and get married to it.
Man, there's crazy people like that all the time, man. I saw them, but like, man, I remember there was a guy back in the day that tried to marry a Ferris wheel or something like that.
Oh, how'd it go?
I heard that it had its ups and downs.
Bastard, I don't like that joke.
Oh man, I got you good. But really, someone did try to marry a Ferris wheel, and I think they got trespassed from the fair that it happened at. But like, man, honestly though, man, I just came up with that one literally when I was about to say it. Like, there's a little voice in my head, man, that said, "Say it has ups and downs, make a pun," and then another one was like, "No, just tell them really what happened." I was like, I'm going with that one.
Man, that dude was so fed up. He said, I'm going to go marry someone that doesn't talk back. This Ferris wheel right here. I'm going to go marry the Ferris wheel. Oh, man. I tell you what, that's crazy talk. That's crazy work.
Man, people love that one, man. I gotta go do stand-up now. I'll bomb like 90% of the jokes, but that one will be a killer. But anyways.
Man, he said, I'm gonna turn on the Ferris wheel tonight. Goes over there and presses the button.
Like, oh yeah, baby, I love it when you do that.
Wilding out with the Ferris wheel. It's like a carnival in here. Look,
man. Look at them gondolas jiggle. I'm in the rocket.
People are crazy out here, man. Yeah. Some people are crazy. I tell you.
Oh my lord. Anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ghost of the Old World, who puts in a 10. And thank you as well for that support. They said, hey, y'all, Mr. Charleston again, still eyeing the Cuba situation. And I heard you mention it on last night's stream. And but what was the comprehensive reason for not covering what's happening in Haiti as much?
Oh, well, Haiti's like broke and poor all the time, and something bad's always happening there. So covering that's like basically just saying that the sky's blue or that the sun rose for another day. That's why Haiti's not covered at all. Like a little bit of what goes in our news coverage is that it kind of has to interest one or the other here on the channel for us to give it a little bit of coverage. And like Haiti doesn't interest me at all, because when has there been a time, folks, that Haiti has been stable and then it became unstable? It's always been unstable. I mean, literally for 120 years now, Haiti has been as unstable as it can be. And so that's why I just don't find it worthwhile of covering, because it's like, guess what, guys? The incredibly unstable, impoverished little shithole is now, impoverished and unstable and still a shithole. It's like, I don't really know how to work with that for news coverage purposes, really.
And it's like, how are we gonna cover Haiti? It's like, it stays in constant chaos, like you're saying, but it's like, oh, today barbecue took over. Oh, tomorrow griddle took over. Oh, today stove took over. It's like these stupid names that are like of the people that are in charge down there. It's like I'm like, you can't even take it seriously. It's just a state of anarchy, and you really can't cover something that's in anarchy, because I mean, what's there to cover? It's just chaos.
Man, next thing you know, Kendall and the Gremlin, it's taking over the country or something. And it's like, it also on top of that, it's like, there's a million things like that going on in the world. If we're having to go out of our way to like, basically like justice warrior coverage of Haiti just for the hell of it. I mean, we're going to have to cover like almost every nation in Africa at this point every night and be like, guess what, guys? Like, like the guy who's running Uganda that wanted a hot Turkish babe, he's now been removed by another military junta that happened this week right after he got power in Uganda. It's like, that's kind of why we don't cover that stuff, because places that don't really have a lot of strategic pertinence to the United States are not really going to be getting a lot of coverage on the channel, because if barbecue or griddling is in charge at Port-au-Prince, it's not having any effect on the United States, because we have no trade with them. They're not a strategic or economic power, and so therefore they're just insignificant enough. They don't really get any airtime.
At least the mob, at least like the Italian mobs here in America. At least when they gave people a nickname, it wasn't just like stove or griddle or something like that. It was like, at least they were like, yeah, this is my boy Stovepipe over here or something like that. Like, this is Stovepipe, or this is like machine gun so and so over here or something like that. Like, at least they were kind of like, yeah, it was something a little bit interesting, at least. Like, still a little bit out there, but interesting. It wasn't just like the basics, like, like refrigerator or like, sink or something like that.
Yeah, man. Like down there in Haiti, man, they're like Rain Bucket. Like, bro, it's like the warlord Rain Bucket. He's bringing terror to the whole city. It's like, well, I mean, what hell of a name. And also,
it'll be the most stupid reasons. It'll be the most stupid reasons why they got these names too. Like, if they call them like rain barrel or something like that, it's because he liked to drink water a lot because he was really thirsty or something. Or if they call him like barbecue, it's like they call him barbecue because he liked smoked meats. It's like well, so usually there's like some other real reason, like there's more menacing behind the nickname, not just something stupid.
Man, they call it, man, or it'll be something absolutely horrendous. Like, why did they call him Rain Bucket? That's so funny. Oh, well, his opponents and rivals, he drowned them in a rain bucket. What? It's like, wait a minute, you real? It's like, yeah, you would. But also I saw someone say, well, yeah, but Haiti's a lot closer to America than Africa. Well, yeah, but the thing is, though, folks, is that like what I'm saying here is that like a lot of people act like our news coverage is like supposed to just be covering stuff for the hell of it, and really, we've got to cover stuff that's important in the United States. We just don't have enough airwaves to do every story every night, because some people want us to cover Haiti, like like there's something changing, or some people want us to cover the Burmese civil war that's been going on for like 14 years now, on and off. It's like things like that. It's impossible to cover them because, one, they have no strategic impact on the United States for there to be any stakes in the coverage of the story to actually talk about what would be good or what wouldn't be. We're just basically just like bystanding something at that point. And then two, there's also, it's just so unstable, and it's been going on for so long. It's not really like it's just not an interesting story, really, because if I tell y'all, believe it or not, both warring factions in Burma shot at each other again today and nothing changed. Like, it's like, if you do that for 14 years, it kind of is just, it is what it is. There's really nothing more to report there.
And it's also, and also like, and people can take this the wrong way or not, but there's some countries out there that are relevant to like the entire world, like geopolitics. Some countries, they may be at war, but they're simply not relevant to world geopolitics. They're just like isolated skirmishes off to the side. That they're just people looking to hurt each other just for the hell of it. It really has no impact on much of anything. So, that it's really not worth covering, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, it's just not really like that's the reason why Haiti isn't being covered, because if it wasn't for the U.S. threatening to invade Cuba, you would literally hear nothing about Cuba. Like Cuba's never been in our news coverage cycles once until the president threatened to invade Cuba, and now it only pops up when it needs to, because what does Cuba have to give? It's nothing. It's like if something happened in Germany, it's a big deal because Germany is a huge trading partner of ours. It's in the European Union. It's in NATO. Everybody knows Germany. There's a lot of people here on the channel that are watching from Germany, so it'd matter. But if something happened in, say, like Ghana, it's like, well, it's not really going to have much of an impact on U.S. strategic situations or outlooks or really the Western world, because it's, one, always been unstable within this region, and two, it's just not significant enough to have any impact. So that's why things like that don't get coverage. I mean, sometimes we do go out of our way to give some things some coverage when they first start off, like the military coup in Mali. But then also that has a third equation weighed in, to where sometimes it's just comical what's happening. And so then it's like, we can kind of use that story almost as like comedy relief with how insane everything's going and unfolding in that country. But, even still, well, we still cover it seriously, but there's some absolutely hilarious stuff that comes out from time to time. And then we cover it for that reason. But outside of that, like, Haiti just would never be covered on the channel because there's just not anything important enough. So I hope that answers the question well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ulf Hednar, what's in a 10. And thank you very much, Ulf Hednar, as well, for that support. He said NATO should close all borders with Russia and Belarus, along with removing the rail tracks in the Suwalki Gap. If the Russians still escalate, then mine the waters around St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad.
Mining the waters would be an act of war. You would have to do that once the war starts, because if you do that beforehand, it would be kicking off the war early. And we're generally trying to avoid that as much as we can. Like, I'm not for one, like, just backing off and being cowards like people are at NATO, but we're still trying to avoid a war if it is possible. So I would say that needs to be done once a war starts, and it is definitely doable once the war starts. And as far as ripping up railroad tracks, let me go look at the Polish railways really quickly. Polish railways. Polish state railways. Let me see their rail trackage map. Their railway doesn't look usable to the Russians. That's the one that would matter, because they have one here that goes to Kono. And Kono is, where? There's Suwalki, so it goes up this way, and then it goes to Kono. Where in the world is that? What town is that? I can't even find it on here. So it's somewhere along the Lithuanian-Polish border, but I can't really get any further into that. But the thing is, though, is that you don't really need to rip them up, because unless if the Russians occupied the railways leading in from Grodno down to Sokolka, there's really no way for them to use that one rail line that the Polish State Railways has within that area, because the railways in Poland are state-owned, and that's literally all of their trackage. So there's no railway, say, that would be able to bring supplies in from Kaliningrad directly or from Belarus directly without them having to take significant extra amounts of ground all the way out to here, say, north of Białystok, which would probably be very hard for them to pull off at that point, to be able to make that railway usable. So they really don't need to rip it up, because just by its design, it would generally be unusable. But I do thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to Walter A. Lakota Jr. And thank you very much, Walter, for that $10 support. And also, it's good to see you, Walter. And Walter said, aloha, Enforcer Matt and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. And am back in Hawaii after getting off the ship SS Cape Island, which participated in Cobra Gold 2026 in Thailand. And take one from the chat.
And would you look at that, Cobra Gold. That's what they call it, Cobra Gold. We love golden cobras. But beyond that, though, really cool to hear. And also, let's pull up that ship, the SS Cape Island. Let's take a look. Would you look at that? It's one of those roll-on, roll-off support ships of the Navy.
That's what you got to do in the modern day. You just got to let it roll on and roll off.
Man, honestly. Also, this isn't the Navy. This is the Merchant Marine. But that is still really cool. I think I've seen one of these in Mobile before, if I'm not mistaken, at some point.
In Mobile?
In Mobile, Alabama.
It's like, pronouncing it like it's Motown. Mobile.
Man, I got out of there, man. I started saying guitar and mobile. It's Mobile, Alabama. Or Mobile, Alabama. How the hell do you say it?
Mobile.
Man, it's Mobile, Alabama.
I say mobile.
Yeah, just like I said it. You made fun of me, man. You clowned on me for no reason. Why? Why? Why'd you do it?
I think you said it a little bit. You said mobile.
I said Mobile, Alabama.
Maybe I am picking on you. I apologize.
Man, he's picking on me, folks. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But that is still really cool to hear, and really neat to know that you're a part of the Coburg Gold exercise. So a humongous thanks to you for the support and sharing that with us. I hope you're having a blast while you're back in Hawaii, and I bet that had to have been one hell of an adventure on board this ship. Really something else. A really cool ship, too. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, oh, by the way, folks, I wanted to mention this really quickly. Walter E. Lakota, last time we heard of him, I think he was in Yokohama, Japan, which is really cool. Take a look at Yokohama. Really nice place. You see, folks, I've been getting interested in Japan lately because this new game came out called Running Train, which is a Japanese train sim, and I never realized that Japanese railways were just so fascinating. So it's been getting me interested in Japan a little bit, and I'm not gonna lie, folks, Japan is actually kind of neat. Like, for its own, it's got its own, like, downsides, like every place, but still, Japanese culture is a very interesting thing, and also how Japanese cityscapes exist is also quite interesting as well, but I won't rabbit hole on that.
The last time I was down in Mobile, I was still in like the whole legal thing and stuff like that, being a paralegal. And I went down there to court in Mobile, and there was a dude in there that was on charges in the court, in criminal court, talking about murder was his favorite. So that didn't exactly like paint the best picture of Mobile in my head. After I heard that, I was kind of like, I think they got some real crazies down here on the streets.
Man, you know, the last time I went down here to Mobile, let's see here. What was the last time I went down to Mobile? It was to do like some reenacting thing, and I didn't go into Mobile. I kind of like just drove past it, but it looked pretty rough from the interstate. I was like, damn. I was like, Mobile's going downhill. Ever since that port industry kind of dried up down here, they haven't been doing well economically.
Yeah, it's a little bit rough down there these days.
Yeah, kind of rough. If someone's about to come in here and be like, I'm from Mobile, take it back. So like, no. That's like, we ain't taking it back. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Maxwell Conan, and thank you very much, Maxwell, as well. He said, a random weak strike a third country to test the waters, and how do these incursions even help Russia? What is their end game? I doubt even their national superhero Blietman can help them now. LSA is better than TSA.
And a huge thanks to you for supporting. I'd have to agree. The LSA is way better than the TSA, without a doubt. But to answer your question there, it's escalation against NATO to see that they can probably wimp them out and get some concessions is basically what they're trying to go for at this point. So I hope that is addressed to the best I can. And a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Paul DeSena, and thank you, Paul, as well, for that $10 support. He said, we can't conceive what replaces drones. The next step is fully autonomous fighting systems, and once humans are out of the loop, the next step is whatever AI dreams up. Yikes.
Jeepers creepers. Like, honestly, that's probably true, and it actually is kind of, like, scary. It just makes you wonder, what is war going to be looking like in the future? What kind of horrors beyond human comprehension are we going to see in the next couple of decades? Some of y'all are lucky enough that y'all won't have to see it, but like, you know, me and Matthew, we're going to be seeing it, and I'm kind of a little concerned about where this is all heading. But still, a big thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Andrew Honeycutt, and thank you, Andrew, as well, for that support. He said, let's see here. He said the Confederate States of America was one of the worst ideas in history. Dictators continually try to perpetuate the lie that war is profitable and everyone will benefit from said war. LSA all the way.
And a big thanks to your support. And honestly, I don't even know why the hell the Confederacy thought that they were ever going to persist or survive. Like, it was a lost war from the start, as far as their material position was concerned. And also the whole reason that they fought the war was pretty insane as well, considering, like, because a lot of people always say, like, you know, and I do have to say this is kind of like a knock in the U.S. Like, some people will be like, the Union ended slavery. It's like, yeah, we ended, like, slavery, like, 70 years after most other European countries. It's like, it's like, it was a great thing that they did it, but it's like it came so late. It's like very questionable. Like, it's like that it took that long. Like the time that America actually had the Constitutional Convention and created the federal republic system we work on, Britain and France had outlawed slavery and had actually signed into law that if they found any slave ships at sea, they were going to take them into their custody and try and return the enslaved on the ship back to wherever they came from, because they considered slavery to be that much of a moral crime. Meanwhile, it then persisted in the U.S. for the next 70 years. So honestly, pretty messed up sort of a system, and also pretty insane idea that they thought they could ever even survive against the Union, because industrially it was a lost cause from the start, on the strategic end for them, regardless of how they tried to fight it. But I will have to say, dictatorships. And, well, really, actually, what's kind of interesting is that a lot of people are under the misconception in the public that war is profitable, and war is not profitable for most anybody unless if you're in the arms industry. Wars are incredibly consumptive resource-wise and a huge waste of time and material. If it's not necessary to fight a war, it's best to avoid it, because the economic damage that one will cause just from the cost of a war alone is most of the time not really worth whatever would be gained. So I would have to say that, in my honest opinion, I just don't know why a lot of people always say, oh, like the bigwigs want to go to war because it's profitable. It's like, nah, it's not. Like, anybody who knows anything about a war will know that most countries after a war are on the verge of absolute bankruptcy, because they've spent everything they had, every last dollar, trying to fight a war when that could have been spent on something else. Eisenhower's farewell address was a great ode to that, about how every bullet, like Matthew loves Eisenhower, but every bullet that's fired in a war is depriving food from the mouths of the hungry and whatnot. And I generally believe in that. I'd say avoid wars unless if they're necessary, but if they are necessary, make no mistake, a war must be had and it must be fought, and then won. But a huge thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Maurice Sparks, and thank you, Maurice. They said, you two rock, and take one from the chat.
And thank you so much for the kind words, and you rock as well. And we will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to AF Kaplan. He said, do we know if any Romanian citizens were injured or killed as of right now?
I think we heard that 2 Romanian citizens were injured, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's the report currently, is 2 injuries, no death.
So we know of 2 injured, no deaths, but of course that could change at any time. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Flat for Life, and thank you very much for that $5 support. They said Article 5 will not be activated due to this. And I would agree with you 100%. It definitely won't be. We'll be lucky to even see Article 4 get activated, which is simply a consultation with the allies. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would agree. Like, it should be heavily considered, at least. And it should be made very clear that another similar provocation will lead to Article 5 being invoked. But like Matthew's saying, and I would definitely agree, we're probably going to see maybe a strongly worded letter of condemnation. We probably won't even see Article 4. But a big thanks to you for support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Diz. I thank you, Diz, for that 5. They said, why would Russia push the front line to Romania instead of Moldova first, especially when they can't hold the line in Ukraine?
I wouldn't really be able to tell you, like, at least on that strategic side. But the real reason why is because they're trying to pressure NATO, and Moldova isn't a NATO state, so they have to go to the next best thing and try and hit Romania or someone else along those lines. But they also need to do it in a place where there's some culpable deniability that it was an intentional hit, so that way, if it started to escalate out of proportion, they can go, guys, relax, we didn't mean it. It was just a drone trying to hit Ukraine, and it just passed into Romania. They wouldn't be able to do that if it hit a place like Latvia, because there's literally nothing near Latvia that Russia would be trying to blow up rather than a NATO state. So I hope that does address it the best I can, and a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Smarzig, and thank you, Smarzig, as well. They said, as the EU is mostly hot air, nothing will happen, and they won't do anything except more meetings and conferences. If only hot air was a weapon.
And I'd have to say, You're not wrong. I mean, I got to say, Western leadership these days is spineless across the board. And then people say, we need someone who has spine. And then they vote someone in who's even more spineless. You know, it's always like that. It's something else. But a big thanks to you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. And I hope that does address that well. And I just saw someone said in the chat that they weren't a big fan of Eisenhower because he extended the Second World War. I have to ask how. Because he was the Supreme Allied Commander. He really wasn't the one in charge of the political decisions or the diplomatic decisions. He was just the one in charge of fighting the war in Europe. He's just a Supreme Allied Commander in Europe. So I don't know how in the world he's responsible for extending the Second World War and what could have been done to end it quicker. So that's a little bit beyond me. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from David 4, and thank you, David, for that 5. He said, guys, the drone hit near the Strada Cambentanalala on Apple Maps. There's a road closure near there at the time this happened.
And it hit on that Strada Brawley because it was on this building right here. Or it was on that Strada in Luca Cargiali. Which I'm not good at Romanian, folks, unfortunately. So I have to say, I thank you for the support, and we'll have to see. But a big thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Flat for Life yet again. He said, I don't agree. Putin's popularity is low, and a NATO response is exactly what he needs right now to unite the Russian people.
Oh, yeah, I would doubt that, though, because if you look at the war in Iran, it didn't really unite the American people behind the president. It kind of turned more against him. So I would say that starting larger conflicts these days, especially when you're going out of your way to start, when it doesn't really seem to be a uniting factor, it seems to be a further isolating factor to where the person who did that becomes even more unpopular. Because I think right now in Russia, if you were to ask most people and they didn't fear the FSB, they'd probably tell you that they would really like the war in Ukraine to end, and they wouldn't like to get in a whole-blown war with NATO that could turn nuclear. So I hope that does address it the best I can, and a big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to the Wolfman, who puts in a 5. And thank you to Wolfman for that $5 support. He said, what Russia has done in Romania is an act of terror, and there isn't any debating it.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. And I got to thank you so much for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I just saw someone say in the chat that the United States only answered at the end of the Second World War. Where are y'all getting that from? The Second World War in Europe started in 1939. We joined in 1941. So that was 4 years of fighting. The Second World War was 6 years long in reality because it started at the end of 1939. So we were there for the majority of it. We didn't join at the tail end of it. If you're saying that, I think y'all are getting confused with the First World War, where we joined in 1917 and the war ended in 1918. I think that's where y'all are kind of getting mixed up, because the U.S. was around for most of the Second World War. I mean, we were around for literally the entirety of it in the Pacific, because that's when it started in the Pacific, is when we got bombed at Pearl Harbor. So there's no way we could have not been there for the whole part of the Second World War in the Pacific, which was a huge part of the fight. And then we were also there in Europe really ever since the early spring of 1942 on the ground. So, you know, that's a little bit of interest. Also weird to blame on Eisenhower, because it's not like Eisenhower was a dictator at the time that could just choose to go over there on his own and do whatever he wanted to, because, you know, there's a government and a Congress and a president that would have to make all of those decisions outside of his control. So don't really know why that's being blamed on Eisenhower by some. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Trippy, who puts in a 5. And they said, if Russia threatened Alaska, the U.S. might give it up for free. Now, we wouldn't go that far. No, the Russians can't have Alaska. Like, they may go, like, try to look at it, but they can't have it. They can look, but they can't have it. But Enforcer, what say you?
2 days later on Truth Social, Alaska doesn't produce the oil it used to. They're really lame people. We ought to give them up to Russia. Let Russia have it, like, as a gift of reconciliation. Honestly, I would say they can't have Alaska, but honestly, like, you know, I don't know if that's a founded idea or not, but, you know, it is an idea. It is one of the ideas. I'll say that. So big thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Data Relay, who did not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Data Relay, for that $5 support, and we do appreciate that very, very much. We also have a 5 from Kirorabishi, and they said, there was multiple drones entering in Romania, but the army response is very weak.
I would agree completely on that. And a huge thanks to you once again for the support. And we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Mac Bones, and thank you, Bones. Thanks, Bones. Thanks, Bones. Is he dead, Jim? He's dead, Jim. But thank you for that support. He said, yo, I'm in Cape Canaveral, and I heard a loud boom. I had no idea what that was.
Oh, that's that
must have been
rocket blowing
rocket.
up.
It must have been that rocket. Oh, man. Apparently, it shook people's houses, which is, not really a surprise. It was a huge explosion. But, yeah, apparently that would have probably shook everybody up. But unfortunately, what say you?
Yeah, that was that rocket blowing up out there. That happened apparently right at the beginning of the show. So, yeah, that was it. That was the thing. So, a big thanks to you for support, and we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Hoodoo, and Hoodoo said the Russians do not have any significant offensive capacity, poor logistics, and few tanks. And I would agree with you. At least on that aspect, I would agree. On the Ukrainian front lines, yes. But if you're referring to attacking NATO or something like that, all it takes is missiles and drones. They don't necessarily have to do a ground incursion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that they may not have any significant offensive capacity, but if you take an enemy off guard and there isn't a secured front line, you can really go wherever you want to, so you don't really need a lot of that at the start of a conflict to be able to gain ground and then try and hold it for as long as possible. So, big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Mauricio, and thank you, Mauricio, as well. He said, in 100 years, they'll say World War III started when, BRICS was founded in 2009. I don't think they'll say that. I don't think they'll say that. I think they'll say that World War III started with the invasion of Ukraine. I think that's what they're going to say, and that was back in 2022. So that'll probably be the start of the situation, the actual catalyst to it, and then it will probably go out from there. But it's a pretty long lead up to the actual hostilities really starting, between the superpowers and NATO. It still hasn't arrived yet, but it seems like it's right around the corner. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that kind of a deal would be looked at like the Triple Entente, the Triple Alliance leading up to World War I, where it was like the formation of the groups, like the Allies and the Axis before a war started, but it wouldn't be looked at as the start of the World War, because the formation of the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente was never looked at as the start of World War I. It was just looked at as the formative years that would lead up to the First World War, and then the balance of powers and whatnot that would create those alliances. So I would say that probably wouldn't ever be the case. In my opinion, I would have a feeling that they probably would say that the war started with the invasion of Ukraine. Or they might say it started with the Russian annexation of Crimea and the Donbass in 2014. But that's a bit of a stretch, and that's one of the ones that's going to be argued heavily in the future by historical analysts, because they're going to be saying, well, while they did that, it was more so like a preparatory action, kind of like the Anschluss of Nazi Germany on Austria in 1938, and that wasn't really looked at as the Second World War, the start of it, by most people, although some kind of say so. But really the invasion of Poland's looked at by most as the beginning of the Second World War in Europe. So I hope that has addressed that well, and a big thanks to you for the support. And apparently we got a new Institute for the Study of War assessment coming out right now. What do we got on that, Matthew?
Man, I usually don't call these out on the air because I usually just read them off the air. But the ISW is swinging today. They're swinging. They put out this tweet 6 minutes ago. They said, brand new, Russian President Vladimir Putin has likely developed a false perception of the Russian military successes in Ukraine based on heavily exaggerated maps from the Russian High Military Command. I love this assessment. This is a fantastic. This might be my favorite of all time right here. They're just saying exactly how it is. But I would agree with them. Definitely, there's a lot of exaggerations going on because the generals inside of Russian military command are scared to death to tell Putin what's really happening. But also, Putin's not totally ignorant either. He knows it's not going well. He just probably doesn't know all the nitty gritty. But I love that assessment. Enforcer, what say you?
Honestly, it's a pretty good one. And we know that they have been, because they've claimed to take over so many cities like 6 or 7 times now, and they still aren't in control of them. So it looks like that's still continuing in the southern front now, in between Stepnihirsk and Orikhiv, which is a pretty active front. It's just that we don't get a lot of footage from there most of the times these days. But with that, I hope we've addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Robert Krogan, and thank you, Robert, as well. He said, good evening, Enforcers and LSA, and take one from the chat.
And a big good evening to you, and a big LSA to you as well, Robert. We will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
So this one goes to Peter, who said, how can Russia punch through with diminished armor, troops, jets, and weaponry?
It's all about maneuverability, because at the start of a war, you do not have a solidified front line that you're trying to punch through. There's literally nobody in some places when a war starts. So if Russia has a whole bunch of Ladas, and they somehow drive across this border here, through this little county road, and then somehow make it to the other side of the Swolky Gap, they just physically took it. NATO can't just go in and go, you need to leave, because then it would be an active firefight. So then we would be seeing that they would solidify a line, and they would hold that area for some time until NATO felt confident enough to counterattack and try and punch back through. So that's why the earlier part of a war, it doesn't really matter if they have those capabilities, because there isn't a standing front line there right now that would make it hard for them to gain ground quickly if they took us by surprise. That's just how wars work. Like, for example, with the Second World War, a lot of people don't know this, but the Philippines was a U.S. territory on December 7th of 1941. The Japanese took over the entirety of the Philippines and also forced all of the U.S. troops in the Philippines that were left to surrender in just a couple of mere months. I think it was like a month and a half or 2 months. They took over the entirety of the Philippines. So if they can do that with the element of surprise when they lost the rest of the war handily for the most part and lost most every battle afterwards, then, without a doubt, anyone who has an element of surprise on a non-solidified front line against an enemy that's not prepared, they're going to be able to make significant ground gains before a front line is solidified. For example, look at Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine's a great example of that as well. So I hope that does address that well, and a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next support, our next support actually is going to go to none other than Hoodoo once again. And Hoodoo puts in a 5. He said, how long did FDR have to walk on eggshells to help England? Over 2 years, and why? The U.S. People did not want war. It took PH and the Germans declaring war.
That's true. That is true. And also FDR said that he was generally of the idea of neutrality, although they were quietly supporting the British and other allies, and also were preparing pre-mobilization in the U.S. by building up the armed forces by a draft that was actually happening in peacetime before the Second World War, and also we're trying to work on creating some military industry and defense industry that already existed before the war started. So there were some actions made by FDR's administration to prepare for the inevitable war while keeping them out of war. But unlike the current administration, they weren't completely blind and oblivious to the reality of what's coming. Because, to be honest, it seems like the current administration is very blind to what's coming around the corner, and they just act like the whole world is static if they're not directly staring at it. So, a big thanks to you for support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have here a 5 from Kirabai once again, and they said, so new news about Romania. There was multiple drones. The RO alert was for another drone. There was 2 drones seen flying in Galati. Now, I only heard about the one that actually hit. I didn't hear about the other ones, but maybe possibly, but I've only heard about the one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I've only heard about the one as well. I haven't really been able to get off air a lot to see if there were others, but I've only heard of the one as far as our reporting. But a big thanks to you for support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also a big shout out to Mark Dixon. He put in a $5 support, and we appreciate you very much, Mark, for it. And we also have a 5 from Plutonium Fever, who said, sorry, I'm broke right now. Best news. And also, don't worry, we appreciate all the support, even a $5 support. It does help.
We appreciate any support. I mean, $5 is a great deal, and I got to thank you incredibly for that support and helping this channel to keep running. And thank you so much for the kind words. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Man, I remember back when a $5 used to get a foot long. Now it doesn't even get you a gallon of gas anymore. You remember those foot longs, like the Subway, the foot long, and that whole dude and everything like that.
Man, Jared from Subway, who can forget?
Yeah, the foot long. Let's go down to the Subway and get a foot long.
Man, and then they found out about he should have been beyond that. So, yeah, I remember the $5 footlongs. Honestly, man, it's crazy to think that there was a time that there was a dollar value menu and also $5 footlongs. That's insane.
Yeah, I saw the prices of stuff like even at McDonald's is going up like crazy. I think last time I went through McDonald's, I paid like $4 for a large fry or something like that.
Like it's wild what things are costing now. I don't think there's really a dollar menu anymore. If there is, I'm not really aware of it for the most part. Like when I came out of McDonald's paying $11 for like a basic meal that had barely anything with it, I was like, this is getting crazy. Like I've never come out of McDonald's paying $11 for this like lame food, this like phony, like not very good tasting food for $11. That's crazy.
Dude, a McDonald's burger now is like $7. Like that's like Five Guys prices a couple of years back.
And then the CEO's like chewing on the burgers like a horse with his front teeth.
Bro, he's like spitting it out in the napkin and shit. Bro, it's like, I don't like, considering how little faith this guy has in his own burgers, I have no faith in McDonald's burgers anymore. Like, it's like, if the CEO isn't willing to eat the thing and he's acting like it's toxic, I don't trust whatever the hell's in that.
The consumer is going to love our product.
Also, by the way,
sounds like he's really passionate about food, folks. This consumer will love this product because it's really well made and quality source food, fair trade, fair sourced.
oh boy, the customer consumption unit is going to love formula number 1798 on the sustenance product, number 75 at a price of $7.56 per unit with a profitable percentage of 40%. They're really going to enjoy this. It's like, wow, really taking the soul out of this. I was like, man, like, they're not going to, like, on the damn ad, he's not even going to sit there and say, y'all are going to love this burger. No, it's a product. Like, I'm shoving a damn stapler in my mouth. Like, it's like, bro, like.
And then they like turn the McDonald's stores from like these bright, colorful places that were like known as like, you know, being a kids' destination and stuff like that. Then they turn it into gray communism, like looking like basic bland structures on the outside of their stores. It's like I never got over that. Like McDonald's trying to turn into like this communist looking like building. It's like your main appeal was look at that. That is hideous as hell. It's like who the hell made this decision right here? Honestly, it kind of reflects their brand and their product at this point. It looks like shit and it tastes like shit.
Bro, they slopped the shit out of that. Like, bro, they said, let's take all the soul and character out of our buildings. Let's make them cheap as shit. Like really get those shareholders that extra margin. Instead of paying for red and white paint, we just pay for gray. It'll be cheaper. Instead of making the special roof, we just make it a cube, cheaper. Put a little M on there, and we can also resell this, and no one will be complaining that it looks like a former McDonald's. Like it's like,
and also,
dang.
Also, I see Tom Exman saying it's supposed to be a coffee shop, Matt. I mean, I think that may be what they're going for, but I mean, even for a coffee shop, I mean, this is bad. Like even for a coffee shop, I mean, like look at Starbucks for example. They like put stone on the outside of their building and stuff and make it look sophisticated. Because you know, when you buy coffee, like the idea behind it, marketing wise, is that you're sophisticated. You come in with your laptop and stuff, and you sit in there and drink your coffee because you're intelligent. That's what intelligent people do. They go buy $6 coffees. But it's like at McDonald's, like what are they thinking? Like they're going to bring in like what Stalin supporters to come eat here or something? Like what? I mean, who really wants? I can't even remember the last time I went to go into a McDonald's to eat there. It's probably been like decade.
Man, someone said it's supposed to be like a coffee shop. Yeah, like I've ever heard anybody go, "Hey guys, let's go to the reputable coffee establishment, McDonald's, and get some coffees." Like maybe
they have McCafe.
Maybe if I'm like clocking in at a job in the morning and they're like the only thing open, yeah, I'll go to McDonald's to get a coffee. But if I got any other option, I'm gonna go to an actual coffee shop to get coffee. I'm not gonna go to McDonald's. It's a burger joint. It's a burger joint for kids. Like that's kind of like their whole marketing shtick before they did that, and now they're for nobody basically. Like I don't see anybody in McDonald's or anything anymore.
And also, what happened to all the mascots? You remember there was Ronald McDonald, there was Menace. Like, what happened to all of them?
You mean Grimace?
Are we talking about the same thing?
Right, you said, man, they had all those mascots. They had Menace. I was like,
well, what was it? Are you sure you're talking about the same thing? I could have sworn there was one called Menace, and it was like that weird looking thing.
This?
Oh yeah, this is him, Menace.
Bro, this is Grimace.
Menace or Grimace?
This is Grimace, not Menace.
I think. Okay, I guess it's Grimace. Maybe it's Grimace. What's that thing in the jail suit?
I think that's the Hamburglar, if I'm not mistaken.
Huh. I guess it explains why he's in the jail suit then. But yeah, what happened to all these mascots? They just went away.
Yeah, it's the Hamburglar.
Hamburglar. Kind of looks like that thing off of The Incredibles. That dude that like came back and was trying to get that guy for like messing him up and ignoring him and stuff.
Bruh, and then they have the greatest Mac Tonight.
I don't even know where this came from. I never saw this in my life.
So this was actually kind of like a limited one because McDonald's originally didn't stay open most of all night, and so when they started to, they had to start running ads to let people know. So Mac Tonight was their mascot for that.
Huh, I don't really know anything about this one right here. I will say the food looked a lot better than that tray he's got right there. That looked a lot tastier.
Man, back in the day, man, shit, you know that shrinkflation hit. That's what they say an average McDonald's burger was back in the day for like $2.
Man, I'll tell you what. I remember McDonald's when they used to give you 2 hash browns when you order them instead of just the 1.
Bruh. I mean, I remember that. Now, like, bro, I forgot about that completely until you just brought that up. I was like, damn, they really did, and they just stole it from us. They took it from us, Carmichael. It's gone. But what's another McDonald's mascot? Rather than Ronald McDonald, not going with the obvious. What is another McDonald's mascot? Bro, Grimace, honestly, though, is horrifying. Bro, he's got a grill.
Why'd they call him Grimace? I thought he was called Menace the whole time.
Man, they got the child-friendly mascot Menace here to menace the kids.
Grimace isn't any better. I mean, Grimace is something you do when it's like something's like gruesome or something. Like you start grimacing. Why is this thing grimacing?
They gotta have a way. Oh, so McDonald's wiki has the answers that we're looking for.
McDonald's like a pimp.
Hold up, this thing's got a million ads. Let me get them off. Okay, so Grimace. Let's see. Grimace is a party-throwing legend in purple fur.
Bro, that is a pimp, bro.
He's skateboarding.
A party-throwing legend in a purple suit.
Hold up. He's skateboarding or dancing on Grimace Island.
Grimace Island. Hey,
Grimace Island? But the law!
Hey, yo. Island? Grimace Island? Whoa. What do we have here?
Let's see. He is known for his slow-witted yet benevolent, optimistic demeanor. Grimace sometimes goes for long periods of time without speaking. When he does speak, he is known for saying "duh" before every sentence, so it's basically like his Katarov thing.
Smart ass.
He was originally introduced with a dopey voice. Grimace originally debuted as a large purple being with 4 arms and 2 legs who loved milkshakes. After the first campaign, Grimace was reintroduced in his modern form with his numbers of arms reduced by 2.
What happened? Did you get in an industrial accident?
I got into an accident with the beef shredder, duh. Bro,
that's why they call him Grimace. That's what he did when he got in that industrial grinder.
Where the hell is the whole deal of what is Grimace actually? They don't explain that. They just let's see. Hold up.
Also, Will Knight said in the live chat, he said Grimace had a whole slew of family members too. There was a green uncle, I think. I didn't know any of that either.
I want to find 4-armed Grimace. Like where is 4-armed Grimace? Okay. Oh, this thing's like creepy as shit. Like no wonder they remarketed it. Jesus, look at that.
Oh, whoa. Yeah. Man, this right here is like what all those communist countries are talking about. Those damnable American consumers with their consumerism. Like this is that greed they talk about in the Bible.
Bro, this is that greed that brings down nations right here, bro. Like, good lord, how many... Dude, this honestly is like very... Oh, what the hell?
That's horrifying. I don't like to look at this. Look at that cage, bro.
Bro, they got Grizzon. Bro, this is where you go when you go to McDonald's prison. You go to Grimace Prison, a.k.a. Grizzon.
Consumed by the capitalism.
Man, no wonder the Soviet Union looked at us as a horror show. I mean, shit, if I saw that in a picture in the Soviet Union, I'd kind of freak out myself. But 4-armed Grimace is something that we'll never look at again. But they just don't explain what the hell this thing's supposed to be, though. That's really the question. What the hell?
That one, I kind of have like pity on that one for some reason. I don't know why.
Man, this blood looks down in the dumps. Bro, like this guy looks sad.
Man, he lost down that hash brown.
Man. This one do be on Grimace Island.
Mm-hmm. This one right here, lock him up.
Man, this one said, yeah, I got the hamburgers with me. Bro, it's like, get that thing out of here. Man, Grimace is horrific, honestly. Like, I don't like this thing. But anyways,
I don't like it either. But what the hell got us on this?
I don't even know. But it's an interesting rabbit hole, though. What about
What's
some?
Burger King's mascot? Does Burger King have a mascot? I don't
Yeah,
like Burger King, by the way. Like their stuff's never really been that good.
bruh, you're in for a shock. It's this creepy ass thing.
Oh, that thing. Yeah, I remember this thing right here. I hadn't seen this thing in ages. I think they tried to do away with him.
Yeah, yeah, they did actually kick this thing to the curb. Apparently, this thing is just creepy
Kind
as
of
hell.
blasphemous.
You know, one of the best like mascots out there is the Jack in the Box mascot. Have you ever seen it before?
No, I hadn't seen that. Was it like a clown or something?
It's this
Oh
one.
my. Oh my. That who came up with this? A demon?
Nah, man, this thing is funny as hell. You ought to see the commercials it's in. Like this one right here, man. Like he said, like it's got like the most nonchalant, like office voice, and he's like, my burgers are pretty good. You don't like that? He ripped off his sleeves. He was like freaking chat. He said, "Do something about it." Like it's like, bro, it's like honestly, it was a pretty funny marketing campaign,
Yeah.
really.
I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I think of the Burger King stuff, like nothing good comes to mind when I think about Burger King. Like I never liked the taste of the hamburgers and stuff. Like the Whopper wasn't ever really good, at least in my opinion. I only think of that dude that was sitting on that plane saying a bunch of like racist stuff on the plane wearing the Burger King like crown helmet. Like you know what I'm talking about? You know that like a horrible video that was out there.
Yeah,
Man, that's immediately what I think about when I think about Burger King. I think that dude did a number on him.
man, I'm not gonna lie, man. I mean, it's just what the hell? That's what they changed it to? That's worse.
That's bad. Why'd they make him pale? Like he doesn't go outside.
Man, those burgers got to him, bro. Like they got to him, and he's been in decline now.
They sucked every red corpuscle out of his body.
Bro, like that one like Star Trek episode, he's got no blood in him, Jim. He's got no hemoglobin or whatever. Also, man, like the outfit was like horrendous.
You know who has the best burgers is Five Guys, but Five Guys price their burgers so high that I don't eat there anymore because I just refuse to get ripped off like that for a basic burger. But they have some pretty solid hamburgers. It's just absurd what they're charging for it. Like I think it's like for like that bacon one, I think it was like $10 and the fries are like $6. You come out there paying like $16 for like a little small hamburger and some fries.
Man, and they've really started to skimp on the fries the last time we went, like a while ago. Like they don't give out the amount that they used to. But anyways, with that, I suppose it is time for us to get on to the next one.
So moving on to our next super chat, this one goes to A. Reyes, and thank you very much, A. Reyes, for that support. He said, Stalin cost the Eurasian people 13,000 miles in coffins. Putin is at 662 miles so far.
Oh, that's not bad. That's actually pretty close to 400. Well, that's actually a lot more than 450 kilometers of coffins, but kind of close. Not too far. But a big thanks to you for support. With that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $20 support from none other than Ross, and thank you, Ross, for that support all the way from Australia. He said, when we discussed the start of World War III, if we say the invasion of Ukraine, surely that started with the 2014 annexation of Crimea by Russia, along with the Russian-backed separatists seizing territory in East Ukraine the same year.
I would say that it probably will be heavily debated, but at the same time, though, considering that it wasn't a humongous conflict at that point, it might be looked at as something like, say, like Germany's annexation of the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia or the Anschluss of Austria. It might be looked at similarly instead of being the very start of the Third World War. It's more so the actions and aggressive actions that led up to it. So I hope that has addressed that the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Hoodoo once again. He said Allied planes accidentally bombed Switzerland about 70 times during World War II due to navigational errors or weather, killing about 84 people.
That's actually true. And actually, the Swiss shot down a good amount of U.S. bombers as well, and German bombers. They were very militant about their neutrality even back then. They were so militant that the U.S. had to threaten them that if they didn't stop shooting down U.S. bombers, we were going to start bombing them. And then they stopped. The Germans also had to do that to them as well. They shot down, I think, like 80 German bombers or 100 or so before the German government at the beginning of the war said, you're going to stop that or else you're getting invaded. And then they finally stopped and kind of let them slide on over into their airspace, but not by a lot. If they went really far in, they'd still shoot them down. But a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Dr. Cowlin, and thank you as well for the support. He said, thanks for covering this Russian drone strike in Romania.
And no problem at all. We are always honored to be able to cover the breaking news when it comes out. And so a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on the next one.
And also a big shout out to Esteban Graves, who put in a 5, and also Plazoth, who put in a 2. And thank you both Esteban and Plazoth for supporting the channel. And we also have a 5 from Colin Campbell, who said $5 footlawns from the hot dog man all week, exclusively at the Kremlin.
Oh man, I gotta tell you, the hot dog man, he's busy out there trying to find them. You see, like he's not really doing YouTubes anymore, which I gotta say is really an improvement to the platform. One of the better things that has happened over the years. But a big thanks to you so much once again, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Victorian, who said, what conditions must be met for the U.S. to initiate a military draft? Honestly, I think the one, there's actually 2 things, or maybe there's actually possibly 3 things that could lead to that. The most pressing one would be the Iran conflict. If we go in on the ground in Iran and we start like a larger scale invasion of some territory within Iran, that could be a good basis for a draft. Not that I would necessarily support it, it's just a basis for it possibly. If Russia invades NATO and Article 5 is enacted, that's also another situation that a draft could be called eventually if Russia started gaining ground, which would be questionable, or if China invaded Taiwan and we needed to defend Taiwan, and then we got into a direct conflict there, that would be another basis for a draft. But outside of that, I'm not really sure if there would be one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree with that generally. So big thanks to you for support, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Hoodoo once again. He said, NATO's playing the long game and winning. I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't think they're playing. I don't think they're playing the long game. I mean, if they're playing the long game, they would be aggressive as hell up front to deter the hell out of Russia. To me, they're playing a short-term game. They're avoiding a short-term pain for long-term trouble. I would say it's the opposite, personally.
I would generally agree with that. But a big thanks to you for support, and with that, we're on the next one.
And also, Hoodoo put in a 2 once again. Said Article 5, de minimis non curat lex.
Thank you for the support, Hoodoo, and a wonderful Latin
Do you know
phrase.
what that means?
Actually, not off the top of my head, no.
It's too small to worry about. De minimis.
Oh, I see. You're whipping out that Latin, aren't you?
You know why I know de minimis?
Why?
Because I had to study the stupid tax code and stuff like that, and de minimis is something that they refer to. They say, that's de minimis, which means it's too small to worry about. We don't care about it.
Man, it's too small to worry about. I don't even care no more.
Laughing Jeff Bezos. Wait a minute, my rocket exploded.
Anyways, I think thanks for your support, Hoodoo, and with that, we're on the next one.
Our next one goes to Hoodoo once again, who puts in a 2. He said, restraint can be a sign of maturity and sense, but it can also be a sign of weakness and cowardice, too. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I mean, I don't really know about that, Hoodoo, because, like, if we're speaking in, like, a hypothetical scenario, say, like, let's say some guy came up to you and, like, punched you across your jaw and, like, dislocated it. Would it really be, like, a sign of maturity to just, like, let that slide? Or would that be weakness at that point? And it would be weakness. And the fact that the Russians are doing stuff like that to us, I would say it's generally a sign of weakness at this point. Like there's a point where things are beneath us to where we shouldn't respond, like say invading Cuba, like that looks goofy. But if the Russians are saying to Romania, you're in an active state of war with us, and then they blow up a drone on their territory, generally doing nothing is a sign of weakness, not maturity. Because like Britain and France did nothing to Nazi Germany, and then they invaded Poland, and I don't really think a lot of people look at them as being strong and mature. I think a lot of people look at them these days as being gutless cowards before the war started. But a big thanks to you for support, and with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to none other than Donald Kaus. And thank you, Donald. He put in a 2. He said, broke, but Putin on the Ritz. And one from the chat, please.
And of course, we will make sure to get one from the chat in your honor. And so a big thanks to you once again. And what do we got from the live chat, Matthew?
And this one is going to go to Bootleg, who said, what if NATO is waiting for a reason to go after Russia, like somebody getting injured or taken out?
I'm doubting that. I think that they're just generally averse to any sort of confrontation at this point. So I hope that does address that well. And a big thanks to you for support. Also, Randy, do we have game theories coming up?
Game theories. Let's see here. No, I think I missed that one, actually. But I see it in the chat right now. We can get that one right after LJ's next one.
Gotcha. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to LJ Gidas. And thank you, LJ, for that $20 support. And we do appreciate that very much. He said, hey, Matt, here you go. Run to a Crown Burger and get a cheeseburger, fry sauce, and a chocolate shake. My rule is you can't make basics good. Ain't going there. Now, I've never been to Crown Burger even yet. Now, I've been in and out a few times out here because that was something I was really dying to get to. Oddly enough, I actually got out here near In and Out, and it's still not something I get regularly because I don't really make a habit out of eating burgers, because even though In-N-Out makes your stuff out of good ingredients and stuff like that, it's still a burger with cholesterol and stuff like that in it. So I try to limit it for the most part. But I might need to try that Crown Burger. I'll have to give that a go. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to say, Crown Burger is actually really good. I've had it. There are a lot of really good burger chains out here. There's Nielsen's, Crown Burger, In-N-Out. Then they also have all the normal ones, the fast food chains. And then they have, let's see, Dirty Burger, I think, is one of them. And then they have well, it's good. It's good. It's good, Matthew. It's good. It's not bad. It's just a marketing name because they put cheese and everything on it, and it looks dirty. Because it's slopping off.
Yeah, I want to make dirty up my burger. I want that thing. Go ahead and dirty it on up.
I mean, kick that thing down a dirty road for give me that dirty road burger. But beyond that, I had to say the burgers have been really good out here. Crown Burger is definitely one of the better ones. But a big thanks to you for support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Game Theory, and thank you, Game Theory, for that $10 support. He said, if World War III starts, do you think history will consider the U.S. as the aggressor?
Oh, no. No, they wouldn't, because if we're saying the war in Iran could make the U.S. an aggressor, the U.S. was involved in military operations leading up to the Second World War that a lot of people don't talk about. Let me go and get the names of them, because I know that we were involved heavily in Central America leading up to the Second World War. But we were also involved in a couple of other places as well. List of U.S. wars, 20th century. Let me get them here. All right, so this is the 20th century. So let me see here. Let me get closer to the Second World War. Yeah. There was the Posse War that was fought here in Utah.
I think it's the Posey War.
Yeah, yeah, the Posey
War. Yeah, the posse pulled up and they started a war.
And then there was the attack on the U.S. Embassy in Addis Ababa, which was the capital of Ethiopia. A little fun name there. And then let's see. Well, where the hell was where was all the wait, was the Central American conflicts the 30s? And it was the 20s actually. And the 30s and whatnot. So, oh, by the way, just in case of y'all are wondering, how long has Haiti been a shithole? Well, we occupied Haiti from 1915 to 1934, and that did them no good. And that was 100 years ago. So that's generally why I don't cover them, is because they've always been kind of run down like that. And so it's oh no, they went from being impoverished and poor and in a constant state of strife to being impoverished and poor and in a constant state of strife. And it's never changed. It literally has never. So let's see. Actually, interesting enough, I'm kind of disproving my point here. I'm gonna have to eat my foot because I thought we were actually involved in a lot down there. I knew that the U.S. military did go down and largely occupy Panama in 1940, but apparently Wikipedia isn't mentioning that, so I don't really know how reliable this list is anymore.
We're involved in basically everything. You got to remember, a lot of stuff isn't listed because it's not a public information, but we're involved in one way or another in pretty much everything.
Well, no, I mean, the thing is that with Panama, I mean, we literally went down there and occupied Panama in 1940 and occupied it through the rest of the Second World War, and it just doesn't list that. That's not something that was secret. That was something that was full up in the public because it was such a big thing.
Oh yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, you don't land 70,000 guys in Panama and occupy a whole country, and everyone in America goes, "Oh, I never heard of that one." That seems secret to me.
Doing it in Cuba. They got enough people to invade Cuba allegedly around that island, and for some reason I'm not really seeing it on a map or anything like that. But allegedly they have an invasion force somewhere around it.
Well, that's not really that one you got to worry about, man. It's more of that Jeju uprising you got to worry about.
At Jeju?
Yeah, on Jeju Island. It's that big island on south of South Korea right here.
Oh yeah, Jeju Island right there. That's a relative of Penghu Island.
Yeah, that's where they held that Squid Game. Man, that thing honestly, man, was kind of like getting up into some mischief, man. They got an ass beaten. Like, man.
I remember that father on that thing that Pengu was always going like whenever he was mad and stuff like that, like going after that kid, and then the mother penguin would be like pop pop, sorry, spanking a Pengu. He goes in there going, it's like, I like Pengu, man. I think that was a good one. I like that.
Damn, what the hell is... Hold up, man. I just got distracted. Puerto Rican Nationalist Party insurgency, the United States victory, assassination of Harry Truman averted, P-47s bombed the cities of Ayuya and Utuado, status referendum vote in 1952 making Puerto Rico a commonwealth, in 1954 United States Capitol shooting failed. What? Oh my God. There was a shooting in the Capitol building in 1954 and I've never heard about it until today?
I've never heard about this either.
What? They fired 30 rounds from a semi-auto pistols onto the legislative floor from the ladies' gallery? What? Dude, how have we never heard about that? Huh?
Is this like a January 6th? This is a March 1st.
I guess so. Clearly, everybody, this wasn't violent. This was clearly peaceful. But insane. I mean, this is nuts. I've never heard, I have never, folks, in my life heard of this before. I had never heard that there was a shooting in the U.S. Capitol building in the 50s. You know, and people sit here and say, folks, oh, back in the good old days of the 50s, things were stable. I have never heard of anything like this happening in the Capitol building in the modern day. Like anything.
What if they just went back? What if they just went back and added this like recently to justify the ballroom?
This is why we need a big, beautiful ballroom. We need lots of balls. But apparently this picture here is showing them carrying a wounded congressman out on like a gurney.
Look how different people look back then.
Honestly, man, these guys look like Mormons. Like, man, I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, well, they're about to be asking me if I've heard of their church, but beyond, I mean, that's nuts, folks. Have y'all ever heard of something like that? I never heard anything like that in my life. Like I did know that like a representative was shot by like a news reporter in the 1890s in the Capitol and the bloodstain's still there on the marble, but I've never heard of this one. Like, this is news. Honestly, I'm gonna have to go and start looking into this kind of stuff because I've never heard, like, I'm like literally gobstopped right now, folks. This is like unthinkable to me. In the 50s, no less, when Eisenhower was president. You don't hear about this kind of stuff these days.
Nah, you don't ever hear about it.
Man, that's kind of...
They didn't really have like social media back then, so it didn't really get around that much.
Bro, it was in the papers. It had to be in the papers.
Maybe, possibly, but you know, back then it was just different. They saw it in the paper and they tossed it.
Dude, this is just... 5 people were injured. Wait a minute. They used a Luger from like World War II?
Holy moly.
And a P-38 and an artillery Luger.
I don't know where they got that from.
Well, it definitely wasn't Nazi Germany because it's 1954. So war souvenirs, I guess, you know, like war trophies they brought home with them, maybe. But that's wild. Like all of them are like German World War II pistols that they used. I've never, like, I'm honestly just absolutely floored by this whole thing. I've never heard of it. Wow, nuts. Anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Victorian, who puts in a 10 once again. They said, Zelensky said that to beat the Russians, that only 4 European countries should form a union: UK, Ukraine, Turkey, and Norway. And thoughts?
I would say the more the better, but he's probably right. I mean, Ukraine's beaten them almost single-handedly, so just a little bit of extra effort will probably tip the scale. But that would also probably escalate the conflict a lot more, so who knows what would happen then. But a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Game Theory, and they said, you don't need to answer, but we will. He said, call this your in and out fund just a bitch. Maybe a certain person out there will be called the aggressor. That's in the U.S.
I have a feeling that history is going to remember them a little bit differently. I have a feeling,
as
folks.
A stabilizer.
Yeah, I like that. That's for sure. I'll be honest with y'all, folks. A lot of people are going to remember the current president and the last president probably very similarly to like Herbert Hoover and Warren G. Harding, certainly nowhere close to the best. I mean, if you look at them just qualitatively and you're not drinking political Kool-Aid every day and night to say that the Republicans and the Democrats are like God's blessed people on earth, like they've been doing awfully lately. Both of them have, especially in foreign policy. So if you ever analyzed them from a foreign policy perspective, without a doubt, they're going to be looked at poorly. Like they're going to be I will be honest with y'all, folks. If there was a chapter in history, it's going to be called "The Prelude to World War III and the Destabilization of the Western Alliance." Like that's what this period in time would be called in a history book 50 years from now.
Yeah, basically, like if I was gonna like write a magazine or something like that, you know how those magazines have like those little catchy like covers and stuff to them that like exaggerates like the thing. They put like analogies and metaphor and stuff in it. I would have the headline "The Man That Cracked the Foundation" and have a picture of him with a sledgehammer taking a beating to the foundation of the NATO alliance and all the Western alliances that held us all together like glue. Right at the moment when World War III is about to start, that won't reflect kindly in history.
You know, it's kind of like how the U.S. got involved in creating the League of Nations, and then right afterwards they just bounced right out of it and gave it no enforcement power whatsoever. Kind of similar thing. And this it's not going to be looked at well. And a lot of people right now, like they will not take that at an inch. Like no one who's like left leaning is ever going to hear and take it honestly that Biden wasn't that good, and nobody on the right's going to ever hear the words that Trump isn't good and not go like frothing in the mouth insane. But in foreign policy, unobjectively terrible both of them have been. And if you look at that as a historical decade, considering that both of those terms are taking up almost the whole of a decade, this decade is going to be looked at quite poorly historically for what it's created in foreign policy. Domestic side, that's always going to be opinionated. Like even in the future, 50 years from now, people are still going to be opinionated about whether their domestic policies were good or not. And at best, both of them can be described as controversial because no one's ever going to agree on it all, whether it was good or not. But one thing we can say without a doubt is the foreign policy's been poor. And, if you don't like that, I would like, and I'm not going to take the moment to say if you don't like that, you don't know what you're talking about. But if you don't like that, take a step back instead of being in an echo chamber and really look at what has been done. Does it even line up with their campaign promises the two of them made when they were first elected and how everything turned out? And the answer is no for both of them. And so clearly they're not doing that well. And also with how it's been turning out in real time, regardless of the dynamic situation, the real time fallout of their decisions hasn't been good in any moment either. So clearly it's not good foreign policy. So I hope that answers that well. But with that, we are on and into the next one.
We also have another 10 from Game Theory who said Viva Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico.
And a big thanks to you for the support, and Viva Puerto Rico! Puerto Rico is a really cool place. I never knew that happened, though. But stuff like that happens from time to time, It is a democracy, and people sometimes, go to violent measures. But very interesting stuff. I'll have to research that a whole lot more. Also, I saw someone say, I find this so interesting, folks, like how, foreign policy and domestic politics is always contrived into one thing. Because I said, definitely controversial, and, foreign policy hasn't been good. So then someone brings up border control, like that's a foreign policy thing. That's an internal domestic policy. Like, that has nothing to do on foreign policy. So I don't, it's like, and also on top of that, some people might say that's good, some people might say that's bad, that's still controversial, which I think you might be missing the point. Foreign policy is a lot more straightforward than domestic policy, because in domestic policy, you can say abortion is good or abortion is bad. And as far as reality, you can be heavily cemented in either one, but there's no clear answer to that. On your moral convictions, you may have a clear answer, but half of the country thinks one way, half thinks the other. So it's a controversial opinion. That's what controversial is. In foreign policy, however, if you look at something and say, giving $500 billion to Iran was a bad idea, I mean, that's not really a controversial opinion. That's objectively a bad idea to financially support an enemy of the United States of America that's in this kind of diplomatic position. And that's where the difference comes in.
Have you seen the new $250 bill, though?
I have. I have. And
Go to the Twitter page. And grab the top post. Let's show the people. $250 bill.
With the mugshot.
Yeah, look at that $250 bill right there with somebody looking like a psychopath on the photo right there. It just like from also someone's gonna say, see that TDS is getting in the way. that's a bad picture. Like, how about smiling or something like that? It's like, what's up with his facial expression? It's like, what are we doing here? But a $250 bill, it's like usually, historically, when countries start issuing higher denominations of currency and bills like this, that usually means inflation's out of control. So how's inflation going down when we're introducing possibly $250 bills? Seems a bit of a strange concept there. Also, that bill is kind of ugly. Like, I don't know what it is about it. Something outside the picture, something is odd about the bill, like itself. Like, it looks weird.
Well, that 250 America thing on the side makes it look like Hollywood money.
Yeah, it looks like prop money, like Monopoly money or something like that.
Also, I gotta say, folks, like the amount of like self-glazing that goes on by the current administration, like there's literally like as far as a criticism, there's literally like there's no way that can't be unfounded, because I've never seen any administration self-glaze this hard, where they have to go around renaming every building to them and someone else. Everything has to be about them. It's so narcissistic. It's sickening to watch it at this point. And for anyone who's going to buff that, we make fun of North Korea for putting Kim Jong-un's face on literally everything because it looks authoritarian and dictatorial. There's no way in hell that you can say that this isn't the same thing. Well, he deserves it. Well, then like Biden and Obama and Bush and Reagan and everybody else deserved it, and they didn't get it. So, what the hell is different about this one? It's another face. It's another guy in the office. And on top of that, there's a law from 1866 that says that you can't put the face of someone living on currency. Like all the way from back then when we started to standardize currency, we said that someone who's living can't be on it, so it has to be someone who's dead. And that's kind of violating that law.
I just can't get over that picture, bro. Like, that's such a bad picture. Like, he has pictures that are like decent, like where he's like kind of like a little bit more like acting normal. It's like they go pick the psychopathic picture to go put on the thing. It's like the message that puts forward, like a picture like that, like it's something like you'd see like out of the book like 1984 or something like that, with a dude staring over people, like in
Big
surveillance
Brother
state or something. Yeah, it's like it's a horrible, like I'm not even sure what the thought process behind that is. Like, do they not have any idea how that looks?
Yeah, I just it doesn't look.
I know he practiced that shit in the mirror too before he showed up for that mugshot. He was probably practicing all night. He probably couldn't even sleep. He was practicing so much in the mirror, that look.
Yeah, man. Like, and what's gonna be sad in a minute, folks, is that seeing stuff that under any administration wouldn't even no one bat an eye. Even some people's about to say the TDS is strong with this one. It's like I'm just not really for the whole self-glazing thing, like going on 24/7, where his name's got to be on everything. But like it's even on like his face is on national park passes for the 250th anniversary of the country. Like he's the most important person in national history. I didn't think of like a million other people who have been more important than this guy, like Teddy Roosevelt or George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or James Garfield or Andrew Jackson or Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Peyton Randolph. A million, like literally millions, like that come from our national history that make it seem like it's something greater, than like acting like he's a chem or something. It's like it's not a good look. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a five from Victorian, who said, now that the West has backpedaled on the Budapest Memorandum, what message does that send to the world?
Well, it's been one for a while that we've sent to the world, is that memorandums mean nothing, which unfortunately, it kind of has meant nothing forever, really. Memorandums are just basically like a pinky promise, and beyond that, they don't really mean anything. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a five from SCR 357. They said Al Jazeera's documentary series Latin America, In the Shadow of the U.S., examines 200 years of U.S. involvement in the Americas. LSA, and good watch.
And it is actually pretty interesting. There's been a lot of reasons that the U.S. has been involved in things in America. We've been involved in most every country in the Americas to some extent at some point in history for one reason or another. But I think the most famous one are the banana republics that we created in the 1950s under Eisenhower because of the fear of the spread of communism and a whole bunch of other things. But it actually is very interesting history, and I'll have to definitely take a look more into it because I had never heard of the 1954 Capitol shooting, which is an extension of some sort of a separatist uprising in Puerto Rico in 1954. That is literally entirely new to me. I had never even heard of it. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also a big shout out to Corey, who put in a 1. And thank you, Corey, as well, for supporting the channel. And with that, folks, it is now time to move on from our super chats and into our live chat questions and Morse code decoders. And starting off with our Morse code, folks, we have Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Her Royal Fluffiness, Coach Kovateric, Sire, and Brian. They said the Morse code says the U.S. has dropped more bombs on Iran than Iran has in their arsenal. Doesn't that ceasefire? LLT, LSA.
And and y'all got that dent on the nail? That is the sound of money. Y'all got that right. And I got to say a huge congratulations to y'all once again for getting that correct. That's actually the same Morse code as last night, and I unfortunately didn't have time to change it because we were trying to get on air as quickly as we could. But a humongous congrats to y'all once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the third to last question of the night.
And this question here is going to go to none other than Andrew Acton, who said maybe some of the NATO countries start sending drones back to Russia and say, oops, it wasn't us, must have been Ukraine, LOL.
Oh, yeah, actually, that wouldn't be that bad of an idea. Maybe some plausible deniability at play. I like that. You're thinking there. And so, big thanks to you for putting that one in. That was actually a pretty smart one, really. And with that, we're on the second to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to TS Actual, who said, were there any notable cross-country fire from U.S. aircraft or drones that accidentally hit targets in a third country and or caused casualties? Devil's advocate, Russia's pushing it.
There's some. I think we bombed Cambodia and Laos, like, intentionally. In the war in Vietnam, like, we did that quite deliberately. So, devil's advocate there, we actually did that with purpose. We've accidentally bombed Switzerland, but every time we bomb them in the Second World War, we'd always tell them, sorry, we didn't mean to bomb you. We're trying to bomb Germany. But the thing is, though, is that we would always apologize to people. We'd be like, sorry, we bombed you. Like, very awkward sort of a thing to deal with here. But with Russia, though, they drop a drone on Romania, and then their ambassador says, you're in a state of conflict with us. Therefore, it is what it is, F you. And that's something that we don't really do, the U.S. does, when we bomb someone that we don't intend to bomb. If we bomb someone accidentally, we always tell them sorry. The Russians are saying they're not sorry because they actually meant it. So there's really the difference diplomatically. So I hope that does address that well. And we actually have one more super chat to get to before we get to the final question of the night. So what do we got?
This one goes to Jeannie, last name Tolls, who puts in a 5 and said, ignore this totally. I dare you to miss one on purpose. And I never miss them on purpose. I miss them accidentally from time to time. It does happen, I must say. But we don't ignore a super chat. We don't do that. We don't do it. But thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I'd agree. I put my thumb of approval on that thing. And so with that, it is time for us to get to the final question of the night. And so who is like the last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And this one goes to none other than Bob. He said, my question is, if there's a coup d'etat in Russia against Putin, does Ukraine push forward on reclaiming their original territory?
As in their 1991 borders, yes. As far as their historical borders at any other period in time, no. The state of Ukraine has worked off of the idea that their UN-recognized borders set forward in 1991 are their legitimate state borders, and so beyond reclaiming that territory, they will not be pushing for anything else. So I hope that does address that the best that I can. And with that, folks, we've reached the end of tonight's stream. I gotta give a big shout out to David Ford, who put in a 2. As if Kuwait had a highway like that, smell maybe puke. And I would suppose so. It wasn't a good sight, that highway, But a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, it is time for us to round this thing out. I gotta thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. We had a peak viewership tonight of 17,500 people, and a peak viewership of 190,000 people here at the end of the stream. I hope that y'all have all enjoyed once again this breaking news stream, and we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And if there is a short war video to be made, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that video. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava, long live the Leaf Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, a huge shout out to the almost 200,000 people that were here by the end of the stream. That is a hell of a lot of people here tonight, and we appreciate you all for being with us once again on another breaking news stream, and we will be on the lookout. It seems like a lot of stuff's happening over the last 72 hours. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow, because of course Iran is a bit of a kindling right now. It could go off at any point, and the Russia-Ukraine thing is heating up out of nowhere quite dramatically over the last week. So we have a lot of stuff to be covering these days, so keep a lookout for that short war video, maybe tomorrow. tomorrow midday if there is enough news to cover that early in the day, but definitely on the next War News stream, of course, at 10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. Well, I almost completely lose my train of thought right there, but we'll see you all tomorrow. And of course, Slav Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and good night.